The following is brought to you by the People's National Party.
Make the trumpets blow. Jamaican people want better. Economy coming like stormy weather. Ancestors are turning on them grave to get champion. We can do it together. When we look to the future of precipice, we see Jamaica needs the vision of the PNP. People said the bag of promises, them can't carry go shop. And the crime rate getting high, I wonder when it all goes down, comrades. Jamaican people want better. Economy coming like stormy weather. Ancestors are turning on them grave to get champion.
The proceeding was brought to you by the People's National Party.
So why you come to me with that foolishness, you know? You elect a prime minister, and is a prime minister run the country. It is time we learn to hold our leaders accountable for their actions and stop making excuses for them. Stop making excuses. Otherwise, go elect the people who really run in the country. And I don't want the right start that stupid argument. Hold the people you elect accountable. And stop making excuses for them. The scale of dealing with anti-corruption issues. So there is a learning curve that we are going through. What is important is that the government supports the development of the institution so it can accelerate very quickly on that learning curve and provide the resources so that they can move very quickly on the learning curve, and that the government does not intervene or interfere. And that message goes to the opposition as well. Leave the anti-corruption and policing agencies to do their jobs.
Hello, welcome. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to everyone in television land. Happy Tuesday to our silent supporters. Happy Tuesday to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate each and every one. Tonight's topic is Unite to Fight Corruption with your host Baron and technical support Anne Marie. And tonight we'll have Mr. Rattigan in studio as usual, and Daisy Magazine, and then we'll have a special guest who Baron is going to introduce. Remember, guys, to thumbs up the live, share us out if you can. If you're new to the channel, please show us some support by subscribing. And please remember to support Daisy Magazine at www.maxter.com/p/Daisy. Let me quickly welcome those in the chat, and then I will turn over to Baron. Truck Life, Dolores Logan, Don Mel, Dorothy McCoy, Patel Cruikshank, Colonel Anthony, Merlin Mollioson, Carla Ebanks, Tiffany Nation, Barbara Finley, Yvonne Riley, Beverly Love, Sonia Ellis, the Isaacs family, Cynthia Bureau channel member, SG, Loris Bedford, Garfield Gordon, G. Angel, Winston Broughton, Marcia Dell, Jamotive One Music. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Without any delays, I'm going to hand over to Baron.
Thank you, wifey, for that. And I want to say a big thanks to all participants who are participating tonight, passing through Mystic Sensation. And of course, we have Brother Rattigan in studio. We have Jeannette Calder, right? Of course, the executive director for JAMPJA. All right. And we are going to introduce them to the program, of course. All right. Is Jeannette there? Jeannette?
My mic is new.
I am here.
Okay. Let me first say big welcome, to the guests, Jeannette Calder, executive director for JAMPJA. We are glad to have her in studio tonight, one of Jamaica's most valued mind. And of course, Also, we have Ratigan, right, in this space. So before I get into the program, I will just ask Mrs. Calder, right, to just, give us, a few minutes in terms of introduce two documents, because we value that this conversation that we'll be having tonight is extremely valuable for all Jamaicans. And as what the thumbnail said, we are uniting to fight corruption. So I'm just going to have Ratigan, as it relates to our usual thing, to meet and greet the audience as usual. Right, Mr. Ratigan, please do, sir.
Yes, sir. Mary Byron, big up on yourself. All of the people in the chat, all of my people, family, big up on yourself. And of course, one of my heroines, JC, she there with you tonight and she'll talk about things. She don't have a lot of time with us, but whatever time she have, believe me, when you go and walk away from this discussion, you're feeling like, yes, we understand what's going on right now, because for far too long, we get the run around and the spin around and the twist and the turn and all kinds of them. But this is a lady. This is a sister. This is a daughter of the soil, and she speaks truth to power fearlessly. And I know when you go and find the same way I regard her, when you go and regard her the same way. And by the way, someone want to see her a couple of weeks ago on the program, I want to see her the couple of weeks before. In fact, this is a lady where she never hide on a rock. She out there and taught the things. Is just that people never pay attention. But no, she having attention in a rapture right now, and it will continue tonight. So again, Byron, Anne-Marie, family, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. I'm going to ask Mrs. Calder to just, give us a brief introduction of herself, and then we get into the program. Mrs. Calder.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here with you tonight. This is my first time, and I just want to thank Wilfred for being the bridge to make it happen. I really am happy to be here with you, Byron and Anne-Marie, and to all your listeners.
Thank you very much.
Where to begin? I am the founder and the executive director of a civil society organization in Jamaica that has been around since its public launch in 2019. So we're little just a toops by around over 5 years old. I'm a former civil servant. I'm an architect by profession. My time in government was spent in the Ministry of Housing. And I guess like everybody here and everybody listening, we are convinced that the situation regarding accountability and corruption in Jamaica is one that can be beat. I'm happy to say last year we did a survey of about 1,700 Jamaicans, which is a good sample. The professionals would tell you, Byron. And I asked Jamaicans a question on the survey. Do you think we can reduce corruption? Let me just ask you, Byron, how many you think percentage-wise had a positive outlook towards reducing corruption?
Let me try with 30%. No?
And how much you think?
Maybe 25.
And Will, what you say?
10%.
Well, you see, that is the typical response, Byron. And I ain't going to pretend like I didn't expect that too. But well over 70% of those surveyed said we can reduce corruption. So I just want to let you know that in, this theme that you have, uniting to fight, it, in the minds of Jamaicans, it can be done, Byron. The question is, maybe I should ask them, do we think it will happen? That is where it probably will drop. But I just think it's important to share with everybody listening that Jamaicans in their heart know that it can be done. And that to me is a major step. I just want to say, as part of the introduction, that I am not an anti-corruption civil society group, Byron. And it's not just wordplay. It's a very important difference. I've been saying it, but it don't catch on yet, Anne-Marie. I'm a pro-accountability civil society group. And that is because what's driving us is not just a fight against corruption. It is really to get maximum value out of the hard-earned tax dollar that we pay. Which means that anything that has to do with waste, Byron, and everything at lackadaisicalness, inefficiency, yeah, mismanagement and fraud and corruption. But anything that threatens the government's capacity to maximize that tax dollar to provide services is what we're after. So I just wanted to be clear that it's not about corruption, because that's just one of the issues facing the diminishing value of the tax dollar. So last but by no means least, I want to also say that what JAMP does and has been doing is empowering Jamaicans by creating digital tools, online tools that provides Jamaicans with two things that we think they need. One is information, and the other one is access to the power broker. You can't change what needs to be changed in Jamaica if we don't make it easier for them to contact, say, the Parliament of Jamaica, Byron. You understand? And these are the decisions then being made for us every single day. I consider it a sacred space. And so JAMP creates online tools that empower citizens to have, at the touch of a button, their voices can be heard, even without the elected representative. Why not? And as well to provide them with information that we think is important for them to contribute to the fight for better accountability and better stewardship of our money in Jamaica. So that's my introduction in short. Hope that was helpful.
Well said, Jeanette. Well said. And as I said earlier, we're happy to have, one of the most valued mind with us. Let me just pass on the button to Jamaica for Jamaica's introduction, and then we get into the program. Jamaica.
Hey, pleasant evening to everybody. It's good to be among such great people. Good night to the Mystic Sensation duo, Mr. Wilfred Rattigan. It's a great pleasure always to be in your presence. The lady, Miss Jeannette Calder, is here teaching us on a daily basis. Did I get your first name right correctly?
Well, you got the first name, but I don't know why Byron marrying me off. I'm a good and proper single, You understand? So what if a guy catch the picture? And
That's it. That's his trouble.
Only bright but you pretty. Boy, Byron, lock me down tonight. Hard.
That's his trouble. All right.
Jeanette is single. Quite single and Marie. Let us get that right.
I am so sorry to eliminating the opportunities.
Well, thanks to Jamaica, him give me an opportunity to slip that in. Thanks, Jam.
But the opportunity I can say that Ms. Calder been provided, as she outlined, that she gave us the opportunity to speak to our representative, which there was such a huge gap, and you fill that gap, and we must say thank you. And as you clearly outlined, that it's not just accountability when it comes on to missing funds, but it's also about negligence and gross negligence.
Correct.
As you said the other day, it is FIWI business, and I take that on and I move it on like a torch. FIWI business, and thank you for providing the opportunity so that we can learn about FIWI business and follow up on FIWI business.
Beautiful.
Right? Again, Jamaica is the name. A proud Jamaican, one of the person who is here taking the intellectual fight by just first empowering ourselves with the information that is necessary for us to change our Jamaica land. And I want to say greetings to everybody, both locally and internationally. Our diaspora members, family members, I want you to remember that you're the ones who own this economy. You're the one that have been contributing the most, and you are the one who run our country. And let us take it back and continue to educate us as we do what we need to do and educate everybody on the ground. So it's a great pleasure again to be here, to speak, and to also, most importantly, learn. It's a good evening.
Right. Thank you, Jamaica, for that contribution. All right, we are going to begin the program now, but we are going to get into two clips to the shape of background as it relates to, why we are here. And, as the message said, we are, uniting to fight corruption. Without any delay, honey, let us display State Minister Leslie Campbell.
Okay.
Right? Let us get into that and read it for our folks. Right? Because of course we are here to, fight corruption and gross negligence as it relates to members of parliament, right? We have to make sure we hold the reins of checks and balance. Here we have Tuesday, December 17th, right? Former State Minister Leslie Campbell found guilty of breaching ISAT, right? And the former senator and junior foreign minister Leslie Campbell has been found guilty of breaches of the Integrity Commission Act. Let us get into the detail of that. The verdict was handed down by Parish Court Judge Paula Blake, in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court on Tuesday. Campbell is to return to court on April 4th. Right? Former government senator was charged last year with breaches of the Parliament, right, in bracket Integrity of Members Act and the Integrity Commission Act. Following a recommendation from the IC's Director of Corruption Prosecution, Keisha Prince Kamika. Campbell, however, accused the IC of misplacing some of the information for which the Commission charged him for failing to provide. In an investigation report released in June 2023, Director of Investigation Kevin Stevenson said the Anti-Corruption Agency made 39 written requests for Campbell to provide information between 2016 and 2020. However, Stevenson said the former lawmaker from the ruling Jamaica Labour Party only partially complied with the request. And, we have to make sure that we hold their feet to the fire. The Anti-Corruption Agency had reported Campbell to the leadership of Parliament on February 20, 2017 for non-compliance with the request. And, we need one voice in speaking out. Take it away. Let us get to our final document before we get into, of course, the conversation tonight, taking corruption to another level. So we are just shaping a background in terms of, right, the importance of why we need to unite together, right, to making sure that we are holding, right, our members of parliament accountable, making sure that, the necessary checks and balance being utilized, right, for the accountability processes, right? So that is important because we have, a long history of the corruption, and that is one of the reasons why I'm shaping the background for us tonight to show, right, why we need to unite, right, against corruption. We are saying enough is enough. And this was done by Churchill Nita, right, KC lawyer, taking corruption to another level, right? The present wave of corruption in public office is unprecedented in modern Jamaica. However, corruption is not new to the Jamaica Labour Party. The party boasts a well-established tradition of court behavior as JLP ministers of government have presided over wanton robbery of the public purse, and some of them have been convicted and sentenced to serve time in prison. Remember, these words are from the words of Churchill Nita, right? In the 1950s, former JLP Minister of Education Joe Z. Malcolm was sentenced to 12 months at hard labor for defrauding his constituents. Malcolm's successor in the Ministry of Education, L.L. Simmons, was next. He was convicted in July 1954 for breaches of the Official Secret Act and sentenced to 15 months at hard labor. So we are giving an history, right? In the decade of the 1960s, the former Minister of State in the Ministry of Education, Arthur Burt, may well have been the third to face the courts and be sentenced for his role in the corrupt handling of school building program between 1967 to 71, financed by the World Bank. A report from the Commission of Inquiry established to probe the matter stated that although suggestions of a grave character were made before the commission involving Dr. Burt, he fled the island to avoid appearing before the commission and facing criminal charges. Now, in February 1990, we have Jack Smith, former JLP Minister of Labor, was charged with receiving $70,000 deemed by the Director of Public Prosecution to have been unlawful obtained from farm workers' savings. He was also charged with conspiracy to defraud. He was found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison at hard labor. One would have thought that the JLP would want to break with its tradition of corruption. And listening to Prime Minister Onus' lofty pronouncements of integrity at his swearing in, many Jamaicans expected honesty and transparency from the new government. Instead, what we have experienced is an administration that has taken corruption to another level. Now, former JLP Minister of Education, Royal Reid, was hastily removed from office to facilitate a full investigation of reports of corruption, nepotism, and misappropriation of public funds within the ministry as well as its agencies, including Caribbean Maritime University. Andrew Wheatley has been revealed of his ministerial responsibility after exposure of widespread corruption in the agencies of which he had portfolio responsibility. We anxiously await the reports from ongoing investigations in the Pressure Jam scandal. At present is the Ministry of Health and Wellness, which is under the microscope, and this by no means exhausts the list of corrupt practices that have been exposed since Onus administration has taken office. What is shocking to the Jamaican public is not only the unprecedented depth and breadth of corruption which is being unearthed, but the arrogance of the perpetrators and the refusal of the Prime Minister to hold his colleagues accountable in any meaningful way. Corrupt practices seems to have become a way of life for this administration. It hardly matters to them the poverty that is being experienced by the people they have offered themselves to represent. They don't seem to care that the health services are inadequately funded. They are content to have an underfunded and ill-equipped security force. Despite the escalating criminal violence, even as the people suffer, the rape of the public purse continues and the perpetrators go back their criminal pursuits with the confidence that they are protected. Whatever corruption took place under the previous administration does not and cannot preclude the responsibility of the civil society to expose the corruption that is presently enriching a connected criminal clique and depriving critical services like security and health of urgently needed investment. The Jamaican people cannot remain indifferent to the present wave of corruption. We must demand immediate action on the following list of initiatives that have been put forward. These include Bulletin Point, the Single Anti-Corruption Agency, the Integrity Commission. Bulletin Point number 2, the criminalization of breaches of the Political Code of Conduct. Bulletin Point number 3, the strengthening of powers of the Political Ombudsman. The National Integrity Action estimates that cost of corruption to the Jamaican people is now running into billions of dollars at the time when this was reported. Now it is a shocking news that here we are tonight to discuss $3 trillion unaccounted for. Let us go to our panel. Take it away, please. Thank you. And so we are here. I think I heard another Daisy, welcome to the panel, right? And let me have you just briefly, right, meet and greet your people, and then of course we get into the discussion tonight, the main discussion with, of course, our executive director of JAM, Jeannette Calder. Please, Daisy.
Thank you, Mystic, Mr. Mystic and Mrs. Mystic, Sensation. And to Ms. Calder, welcome to this platform. I have listened to your work. I watched you on Rattigan's program, I think it was last week. Watched you also on Colin Bell. And you're a breath of fresh air. And I thank you for ventilating some of the issues that otherwise would not have been ventilated. And it allows us to come in these spaces and talk about issues that affect the people of Jamaica. It's not about politics, it's about one country. Because orange and green the country will outlast the colors. Right? And Jamaica, good to see you again. Rattigan, Much
It seems like
okay. What happened to my? Okay, yeah.
yes. Go ahead, Sister Marie.
And to everybody in the chat, a blessed Tuesday evening. And you know, I just love all my people dearly. So thank you again, Mystic, for having me on.
Thank you. All right, let us just grab Sister Jeannette Calder attention, and let me just ask her as it relates to my first question, Jeanette. And I want to say that myself also watched the Ratigan program last week, and you have well articulated, right, the summary report, and we were happy for that information to be disseminated. So let us give a big applaud for that. Now, let me ask you, Jeanette, we look at 4 critical ministries, including education, health, labor, and the office of the prime minister, that amass billions of dollars in variances according to the Auditor General's report, and which you have articulately summarized for us. As it relates to the possible deletion of traceable evidence, can you define for us the appropriation account and the importance of filing same annual?
Yes, I think that's a good place to start, Byron, because folks, thank God, have gotten an opportunity to hear it, not only from myself, because it was said by me at the media roundtable that these funds are not missing. It was also the government that came out to reiterate that that is not the issue. And on every show that I have been, it has been the central, or I would say the primary thing at the start, just to let Jamaicans know we have enough of a problem, Byron. We don't need to make it out to be worse than it is. It is bad. We don't need to make it worse. So since the issue has become a little clearer for others that I am not saying it is missing, folks have been asking, so what a big deal then? Which is why your question is so important, Byron. What is this appropriation accounts then? And if it's not missing, what does unaccounted for mean, and what should it matter to me? In theory, let me say this very carefully and clearly. In theory, if something is unaccounted for, the fact is, just by definition of what unaccounted means, is it does mean that something can be missing. The problem is that until somebody accounts for it, you don't know whether or not it is. So it is wrong for us to come out and say it is missing, but it is also fair to say that we can't tell if any of it is missing. So while I'm trying to clear the air, Byron and Ann and team, I will always do my best to remain true to the facts as I understand it. And I don't want to go from one extreme and then in a bid to really try and fix the situation of the misinterpretation, I don't want to go over to the other. So unaccounted for, let me just go back to the appropriations account. And we're just going to keep it very simple. If I run a small office, and if I have $100,000 to spend for a week, I have to report back to a board and tell them what has happened to the $100,000. And I really like this example, Byron, because the money I spend is not mine. The money that JAM spend, we are primarily funded by the taxpayers of the European Union. This is the EU that has been funding us for the past 5 years, and we also get some from the UK government. So I have to go back to my donors and I have to tell them what I do with that $100,000 for the week. Now, when they gave me this money, they approved a budget that tells me how I'm to spend that money for the week. It's the same way so with the Jamaican people. There's a budget that is passed every year by March the 31st. And by the way, Byron, I was not exactly, I was in, I would say fair to say, top management in government. I had to go and sit before Parliament and give account. And it's only about 3 years ago I found out that the budget of Jamaica is actually a legislation, it's a law. You didn't know that? Me used to just call the budget. But the budget is actually an act and legislation, a law. So when that law is passed, there's X amount of money that has to be spent on certain things, and you can't go over that, right? If you're going to go over it, the Minister of Finance have to fly that gate, because he's what? He's managing all the funds for the people, and he needs to know if a little bit gone over there, so where am I going to get it from? Pad things up. So during the course of the year, you are spending the money according to the budget, just like I have to do. And you have to give a report back, because it's not your money. I'm going to keep saying that, because that is the core of why it needs to be accounted for. Baron, if it's your office, you don't have to account to nobody. It's your money.
Definitely.
But once you have people money, you have to give account. And what does giving account mean? You have to say what you spend it on. You have to say how much you spent. And you have to also say, did I spend it according to the rules? Because it is not your money. The people who own that money tell you certain ways in which you have to go about deciding who you're going to buy things for, when you're going to buy it for. Same thing back in government. There are certain laws that are put in place to protect our money from people who are corrupt, from people who want to commit fraud. And also, Byron, there are rules in place to prevent you making genuine mistakes. Yeah? So at the end of a month and at the end of a year, all of these reports, everybody write down what them spend. Ministry of Finance gets reports. The minister is right. But there is, I'm going to say this 2 times. This is the first time. There is only one person in the government of Jamaica that can provide the assurance that all is well in terms of how our money, how it has been spent, what it has been spent on, and whether or not we get value. It's only one entity in government who can do that. It is not the Ministry of Finance. It is the Auditor General of Jamaica, whose job it is to get all of those financial reports that tell her what we spend money on, when we spent it, how much it was, and in what way. Now, once she checks for us, Byron, and everything sorted out, she now will report to the Parliament and the people and provide what we call a certification of the appropriation accounts. Appropriation accounts is just the same as saying financial records. And once she provides that, all is well. Whenever things are not well, Byron, she also indicates, she will let the government know that this ministry overspent on salaries without getting the approval of the Minister of Finance. She will let the Parliament know that this ministry just bought 500 computers and did not tender, which means they broke the Public Procurement Act. She will also let them know that when they bought the 500 computers, she went back to check on them 6 months later and 50 of them are missing. You get me, Byron?
Yes.
So her job, in summary, I put it this way, is to protect the assets of the people of Jamaica, protect the funds of the people of Jamaica, and therefore I see this audit, this audit action and this department as one that protects the future of the country. If you look out for my assets and my money, you're looking out for my future. So if the government agencies are not providing the Auditor General with financial records, then honestly, Byron, she cannot tell you whether all is well in a ministry, yes or no. And that is really the sum of it. The appropriation accounts is a record of what was spent and what it was spent on and how much they paid. And somebody have to verify it to make sure that there is honesty in the reporting, but also that there are no what you call genuine mistakes, because people make mistakes as well. And that is really what this whole matter here is about. The ministry not providing them and the Auditor General therefore not being able to assure us that all is well.
Okay, very good. But let me just give some extension on that, Jeanette, right? Because we have seen where, right, by what prescribed in law, that the appropriation account supposed to be submitted annually. Right. Now, so that, having said that, Can you define for us the various tiers of accountability between the permanent secretary and the parliamentarians?
Sure. I mean, you would imagine that you really can't sit down and wait 1 year in a Byron for an auditor to check, because a whole heap of things can go wrong by then. So each ministry actually has an internal auditor that is supposed to be doing it on a more regular basis along the same lines of what the Auditor General does, but doing it from within. You might say, so Jeannette, why we need the Auditor General? It's because you know how it go, guys. Just think about it from a human standpoint. If you have an auditor that works in the system, they are a part of the organization. And an auditor can build relationships with people in an organization that makes it hard for them to raise the red flag. So that's why you need still an external auditor. But before we get to the external one, which is the Auditor General, you have that internal auditor who is going to report to a finance director in any ministry. That finance director is also going to have to report to the permanent secretary what it is that he's been spending on a regular basis. Outside of the permanent secretary, which is really who we call the accounting officer of every ministry, meaning they give to account, they should have their hands and their eyes on everything that is happening. And if things go wrong, it's the permanent secretary that generally has to answer for it. But outside of the Auditor General, the permanent secretary, what I call the accountability architecture or the accountability environment or the accountability chain, it extends also beyond the ministry. I would like to also introduce the knowledge to people that there is a board of permanent secretaries. They all meet. They're all facing similar challenges. Somebody has to chair that board and oversee that whole of all of what permanent secretaries are doing. And the person who does that is the highest ranking public official in government. And no, that is not a political person. It's not Mr. Holness. It's actually a civil servant known as the cabinet secretary. So the cabinet secretary in the office of the cabinet sits and chairs that permanent secretary board. I think is important because if he were reading these reports, then Byron, he should be drawing up all of these permanent secretaries and saying, what a gone. But outside of the permanent secretary, the board of permanent secretaries, and the cabinet secretary, the Ministry of Finance itself plays a critical role in overseeing how public funds are being used in all ministries. So they are a ministry, but guess what, Byron, is them setting the rules about how public funds are to be used and protected. It's the Ministry of Finance. I'll give you a quick example. Once upon a time, a permanent secretary could just move money around in the budget. You get a budget for $100 billion. You just move it around. If you want to put some more on salaries, put some more. It don't matter. As long as me not spend more than 100 million. Ministry of Finance makes a rule and said, no. If you're going to move any money around in the budget, especially on salaries, you have to come through me. So the Ministry of Finance really provides a special watch over the other ministries and the public companies. I have to say, for your listeners' sake, because I too was in the public sector and I didn't know this, that the financial secretary in the Ministry of Finance is a permanent secretary. The financial secretary is the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Finance, and that PS is a very powerful permanent secretary, Byron and Ann. Not a normal PS. Another time we can go into it, but if you're talking about holding people to account, that position in government is a very powerful one if you are interested in accountability and fighting corruption. Yeah, it's not a small position. That outside now of the Ministry of Finance, you have those who we call the anti-corruption watchdogs. They're still a part of this because if things go wrong, if the Auditor General finds something, if a permanent secretary finds something going off, she can call on several different anti-corruption bodies. We know the Integrity Commission is one. We know that MOCA is one. And we know that the Financial Investigation Division of the Ministry of Finance is one. And here is one most people don't know about, but is a powerful little group still. The Revenue Protection Division in the Ministry of Finance again. You see how much of them in the finance section? So that is the lay of the landscape of what I would call Jamaica's accountability infrastructure. This was created by our parliamentarians, and we're talking about maybe about, I would say, about 13 different pieces of legislation, Byron, to fight corruption and to protect people's money. Is a whole heap. So I have believed, I'll wrap up by saying, when I did an assessment and some research into the question of whether or not we can really beat this thing, I was impressed with what the Jamaican Parliament has, through different administrations, provided to fight it. Very impressed with it from a policy standpoint, institutional standpoint, and a legislative standpoint. So, Byron, the question is, and we will talk about it from time to time, if all of this are what we have a go for, why is it so hard? I have my thoughts on it, but I will leave it there for now.
Very good. Let me ask you, as it relates to based on the tiers of accountability that you had just expressed to us, are you saying to us that you identify a systemic failure?
I would say that, and I like the word. Yeah, I like the word systemic because it means it's in the system itself. But I also want to reiterate that it cuts across both administrations. So it's that systemic that regardless of who is in power, there is a breach in that strong. You remember Byron them said that a chain is as strong as the weakest link, And the system I just described, there are many Caribbean islands want to have the kind of strong system put in place to fight this, right? There are many countries in the Commonwealth that don't have the system that Jamaica has put in place. Kudos to our parliamentarians. So it's systemic because it's happening in almost every institution. That's one reason I would call it systemic. But it's also systemic because regardless of the administration in power, there is a weak link in the chain that we need to find which link that is and strengthening, because it is an impressive design that has been put in place over the decades for us. But there is a weak link.
Okay, very good. Jeannette, I want to ask you a technical question, right? As it relates to, us exposing, the system to be systemic, right? So based on a two-phase report you have done involving the first time you reported $1.7 trillion unaccounted for, and your most recent report of $3 trillion unaccounted for as the government, I want to ask you, has the government made any effort to strengthen the system of accountability to reduce the act of nepotism and other possible corrupted practices? Because where I'm going there, let me just finish the question. Let me finish it. When you first reported, you reported 1.7 trillion as it relates to the total summarization at the time when you reported it. Now, a couple months apart, we have seen now that you came out and you also reported, right, an increase of $1.3 trillion added to the 1.7 trillion. So I'm saying, as it relates to the public information that is out there, and the first calling out of the $1.7 trillion, right? So then I have to ask, is our government taking steps to stop the leak, right? Relinquish the gaps, right? For us not to be having this continuous bleeding, right, of possible misappropriation of funds. Let me use the word possible, right? So I'm asking you, right, have you seen where, right, any effort being made, right, to reduce the gap and strengthen accountability?
Well, I can say, let me just first deal with the specific question regarding nepotism. There is a gaping hole. First of all, you cannot have corruption where the issue of conflict of interest doesn't present itself, right? And that's part of what nepotism is. You have somebody who's your friend, your business associate, and you're favoring them over and above others in terms of the resources of the people being directed towards their pocket and their purse. That's a conflict of interest. The conflict is between you doing the best for the people of Jamaica vis-a-vis a friend or a family member. Now, every act of corruption is a conflict of interest, where a public official has to decide between the people or somebody else. Now, there is no legislation, Byron, that you're going to find that has the word nepotism in it. However, there's enough, I believe, in the existing laws to deal with it. Where we have a big gaping hole is as it relates to board members. So you have legislation that deals with staff. You have legislation that deal with parliamentarians. What we do not have is a very clear-cut provision in any law that talks about the behavior of a board. Now, for example, in 2021, I don't know what happened in 2021, but we had several instances where cases the Auditor General spoke about where board chairmen and board directors were benefiting directly from contracts with the companies that they sit as the board members. How that must work? That can't work. And in many of those instances, there was no tender. You're a board chair and you have a trucking company, and your trucking company getting all of the contract then from this particular same company that you are supposed to be overseeing. It can't work. That is a gaping hole that the government has not fixed as yet. But that aside, here are two reasons why I would say to you that the efforts are weak. One is when the Auditor General finds and identifies any concerns and raises the red flag of warning, what is supposed to happen is the question. Her reports go directly to the bipartisan committee in the parliament, the Public Accounts Committee. PNP and JLP sit on it. That's why it's bipartisan. And from this year has begun, Byron, we have only had 2 meetings for the year. So you cannot convince me that there's a commitment to deal with the issues, the millions of dollars of concerns and issues that the Auditor General has warned our Parliament of things that are not going well. And I can share some of those hardcore examples with you. And you only have 2 meetings in the last 10 months by the committee that has the primary responsibility to fix this problem called waste mismanagement and corruption in Jamaica. I don't know anybody who could ever disagree with me for saying that. So that's one. Number 2, I want to make it clear when I say bipartisan. Byron, you referred to the government, but I can't keep the parliament too far out of the picture. Because when you're in government, is one party you're talking about. But when you talk about the parliament's responsibility, how much parties sit down in there? It's 2. And both of them are being paid by the public purse to do a particular job to fix this problem that you and I are discussing tonight. So, if the parliamentarians who sit on both sides of the house are not meeting, and if the issues that JAMP raised and shared with Jamaicans at home and abroad about this $3 trillion could be shared by civil society, the question is, where are our parliamentarians? Why weren't they raising this red flag? These reports go to them, Byron. Yeah? So I am disappointed, and I think that the betrayal of the Jamaican people, because this is how I see this money that has not been accounted for, it is a betrayal of the people of Jamaica for no parliamentarian to have stood in the House in the last 11 years and raised a proper hue and cry about this matter. So I said that to say the systemic problem is not only one in the government, but it is in the Parliament of Jamaica. It's the Parliament that holds government to account. So if government now flies straight, we the people have to look to our elected representatives, and they have fallen down on the job on both sides of the house.
All right. Just let me just dig a little bit deeper here.
Sure.
Right. And just I'm going to ask you for to take up presumptive stance. So let me just make that clear. So Jeanette, if you are to assume that $3 trillion will not be able to be fully accounted for based on the lack of traceable evidence, some of which you explained. Tell us, what could we achieve if we were able to effectively use that $3 trillion in addressing several issues such as poor healthcare, vulnerable education system, the poor road conditions, high inflation, and the increase of poverty?
Well, I mean, you rightly pointed out at the beginning that if we take a look at who the areas or the ministries of primary concern, they're what we call the social sectors. Yeah, government by definition is only here, and it only exists to do one thing and one thing only. Government anywhere on the planet exists to meet the needs of the society, attend to the needs of the society. But there are some sectors that are more crucial in attending to the needs of the people, and that would have to be health, education, and the social security ministry. The Ministry of Labor and Social Security in Jamaica take care of, and I mean, the most vulnerable people in our society. The pensioners are very vulnerable. That's the elderly, the poor, and the disabled. So when you have the three primary, and let me not forget the national security, right? So when you have the social sector as the top four of them, as the top four offenders in this matter, then this country really have a problem. Now, I don't think I have to paint a picture for the Jamaican people. We know $3 trillion is not missing. How do I know that? Because for the last 11 years that we're looking at, teachers have been paid, policemen have been paid, doctors have been paid, the hospital is running, right? So the budget has not disappeared from these three. That's such an easy way to demonstrate that it cannot be that it is missing. However, I am here to say, and I will not resile from this position, that part of what our research did was to look at some of the concerns that the Auditor General was raising in these ministries. So while she's not getting these financial reports, she not sit down twiddling her thumbs. She has gone into some of these ministries, and she has shared, however, some of the waste that is taking place, some of the assets that are missing and cannot be accounted for, some of the overspending on salaries without permission from the Ministry of Finance. And at the end of the day, Byron, I think every Jamaican must understand that if you are not spending the money optimally, it means that some need of some citizen that could have been addressed by the government of Jamaica, we never have that opportunity to address it. That's a very fair statement, right? So that's all. If you take PATH, for example, it's a crying shame how much PATH comes up as an area of concern by the Auditor General of Jamaica. And I don't need to tell every Jamaican listening how desperately we need to put more money into PATH, and any money that is in PATH has to be wisely spent so that it can stretch for benefit the Jamaica them who are poor and in need. I mean, gosh, Byron, I'm going to say it again, I'm not interested in locking up public officials. That's not why I get up every morning and do what I do. Why I am driven to do this is because I cannot stand to see the suffering. And there's a lot of that is still happening in Jamaica. And I believe if there's anything that I can do to move the needle a little bit over towards better, guardian of our money and our assets, then my God, man, this is well worth my time. That's it. Yeah.
All right. Let me just ask you my final question, and then I will head back, because I know that, of course, Ratigan is in the space, Jamaica's in the space, and Sister Marian in the space. The JLP administration Jeanette, is pushing back, saying that there is no monies missing in reference of the $3 trillion unaccounted for. The administration further stated that the variances, so we're going to call it variances now, will be corrected or explained as soon as all the appropriation accounts for the respective ministries being filed. My question is, where you have traceable evidence for the past 10 years as we know it, Jeanette, right, have been lost. I want for them, or for you to explain, tell us how are they going to give an account for the trillions of dollars in variances, in spite of evidence being seen.
Well, I don't know, Byron, that there is $3 trillion worth of variances. I have seen no evidence to say there is $3 trillion in variances. As I've said a while ago, the mere fact that we have been getting services from these ministries mean that all $3 trillion, there can't be a variance, right? Now, for where there are variances, again, I am not an expert auditor. I can't answer that question for you. What I'm on the show to tell Jamaica is that there is an entity that we are spending $1.2 billion right now this year to tell us that. It's the Auditor General's department. And we have to be patient a little bit, Byron. Right now as we speak, what day is it? The 17th. In 2 weeks, little under 2, well, exactly 2 weeks, the 31st of December, the Auditor General is going to file her report with the Parliament. So right now, Byron, I would say to you, if you put on your calendar, 1, 2, 3, 4, that in 4 weeks, we must talk back to Jeanette. I will have some answers for you. But the Jamaican people will have to wait until the only person with the authority, who has been empowered by the Constitution to give you that answer, Byron. And that's why I'm saying to folks, be patient. Let's not make claims that we can't back. Let us wait for the Auditor General to tell us what her findings are. Now, Byron, this is one of the reasons I am happy that our research was finished at this time of the year. Because Jamaica, if I had discussed this with you, Byron, in the middle of the year, by the time the Auditor General report submit, everybody forget about it in 6 months. Most Jamaicans, know that. Exactly. So I want it to be fresh in our minds. Well, I'm glad it is happening at this time so that it can be fresh in our minds. So 2 weeks from now, it will be submitted to the Parliament by the law every year by the 31st of December. And she never late yet. Parliament is going to open maybe 1 week into January. By the second Tuesday, which is the second week, that report will be tabled in the House. And Byron, and for all Jamaicans listening, again, me live too long before me know this. Anything tabled in the Parliament of Jamaica, it belongs to you. So if you want a copy, Byron, you just have to email the clerk and you will get it. But when it is tabled, I guarantee the Auditor General CMD are going to put it on our website. So all you and all Jamaicans have to do, this is your business. This is your report. Pull it down and take a look and see which of these ministries have improved, which ones have not, and what other things, what are the variances, if any, she has found. Then we can have a talk now, Byron, because guess what? We have the facts. We have what is before our elected representatives, and we can ask them, my representative, I can say, what are you going to do about this, sir? Because this is what I now see. You follow me, Byron? That's how this democracy works. And this is why, Byron, this matter has gotten as far as it is for 11 years, because we, the people, have not been paying attention to our business and asking these questions. And so I'm very happy to say in another month, we can demonstrate, Byron, to the people of Jamaica how we handle our business by looking at this report and continuing the conversation with our Parliament and government. So we shut down what has been going on for the last 10 years in the way this has been treated. This is a good thing.
Well done. Well said. Solid articulation coming from Jeanette. Let me just rest. Anyone want to volunteer in terms of moving forward with any question? Right, Ratty, Daisy, Jamaics?
I'll yield to my sister. I'll yield to
All
you.
right. Hi, Daisy.
Is it?
Hi, Jeanette. How are you doing? I'm just listening to you. And you think about what is happening in Jamaica, and it's mind blowing. But
It is.
when you think about the paying of taxes, every person, has to be mindful of their expenditure, especially when you're a tax paying person. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you go to your tax person, you have to go with some records of your expenditure for the year. And if there's
Right.
anything off, then you're going to get audited. So
Right.
individually, persons are responsible for either if you don't live by a budget, then something is, you're going to be held accountable at some point in time. So as an
Right.
individual, one is being held accountable because the tax, you have to pay taxes.
Correct.
If you have a business, the same thing, same rule applies.
That's
And
right.
just imagine for a second that a business was being run in this fashion, where
Absolutely.
1 year you're
Yeah.
audited, you don't you cannot account for the monies that you have been allocated.
Yeah.
Then 2 years,
Yeah.
3 years, 10
Mm-hmm.
years, that business would be bankrupt.
Yes.
And if the first year this happened, those persons would be fired. So I don't
Absolutely.
understand how this country is
Absolutely.
running. And there are so many layers of accountability. And
Right.
every layer failed. Every one of them failed
That
for
is true.
10 years plus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there is no outrage. Yet they make outrage over nonsense. And this
Yeah.
is what should be causing major outrage. But I have to ask of you, Jeanette, is it
Uh-huh.
a fair assessment for anyone to deduce from this that of a
Mm-hmm.
truth the monies are missing, given that there is no tangible evidence to the opposite? When you look at the hospitals, you look at schools, you look at national security, you look at labor social security, you look at the office of the prime minister, and you
Uh-huh.
can see that there's, you don't see where the monies have been spent, because it's one thing to say the monies are not accounted for, but you can
Mm-hmm.
see great schools, great hospitals, road fix, all of that. So you can say, okay, they didn't give an accounting for it. It doesn't make any sense, but you
Mm-hmm.
can say, I see where the
Yeah.
money has been spent, but that is not, you cannot see where those monies have been spent. So is it a fair, statement for one to make that the money they're missing?
Um, well, I kind of touched on that a little bit, Daisy, because I guess I can't really speak for everybody on what they see when they look. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I think the value of the assessment is also in the eye of the beholder. When I look at it, I really have to say there is no way the $3 trillion can be missing, for the simple reason, Daisy, that you see salaries is a significant part of the budget of Jamaica, for any of those ministries. No, but now, Daisy, make we reason it out together. If the civil servants and the public servants had not gotten their salary over the 10 years there, you think we would have just discovered it? No. So we know that monies have been spent as per the budget for salaries. I would say to you that I look around over that 10 years and I see projects that have been undergone. I turn on the television, I hear of things that are happening. And because I can see it, not see all, but because I can certainly see quite a bit of what has happened, I can be comfortable in saying $3 trillion is not missing, because 3 trillion is the entire budget for that 10 years. So I am comfortable just from that logic of saying 3 trillion cannot be missing. But as I said when I spoke to the media, and I think it's a very simple but truthful example. If you have an office and you know how it go, you buy stationery, Daisy, and you put it in the office and you buy office supplies. If you have a pantry and the pantry has 1,000 toilet papers in there, if somebody take 10 out of 1,000, Daisy, you not see it with your eye. Or somebody have to go in there and count it off and check it off to be able to tell you that out of 1,000, 50 missing. If somebody took, if it's 1,000 and somebody took 500, you can see that with your own eyes. But if somebody took 10, you can't see it unless they learn how much you bought, see how much you spent, and count it off. I am saying to you, out of 3 trillion, that's a lot of money. And it is possible that $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, $4 billion, $5 billion, $6 billion could go missing out of 3 trillion. That's not a little bit of money, a whole heap of money that's still. So I am saying that some can be missing. There are certainly going to be variances because the Auditor General finds variances every single year. The Auditor General finds overspending every single year. The Auditor General have problem identifying our assets that are bought every single year. So I don't have any doubt, Daisy, that over the 10 years, things have not gone well. What I really want Jamaicans to be careful about is the idea that 3 trillion is missing, because that would not be true. Not true during the PNP time, not true during the JLP time. But I'm hoping that we have matured to the point where, not because 3 trillion no missing, then we're going to ease back and say, oh, Miss Calder say no missing, then everything all right. Because Daisy, if you look at these reports, you cannot walk away as the owner saying everything was okay. If you are going to spend a couple of $100 million per assets and then an AG can't find it. You understand what I'm saying, Daisy? So we have to get down into the details of it, but I'm very comfortable saying to everybody, $3 trillion is not missing. Is there mismanagement? And me says so. Just look at the Auditor General's reports. Yes, they are. Will spoke out, read out a couple of them last week for us. We will see what happens this year in terms of some would have improved, I'm sure of it. Some would not have moved. And maybe 1 or 2 that was not on the list last year have now joined the list this year. But we have to go wait it out and see.
Exactly, I agree with you. But also, you said, you're glad that your report came out at this time of the year because the Auditor
Yes.
General issues her report at the 31st. But
Yeah.
the difference is with now is that you have a social media space where we keep
Right.
these things on the loop.
Very
So Rattigan, Mystic, Jeffrey, Lonesome, they're going to keep these things on the loop. So it will never go out of anybody's consciousness. In the
good.
same way we have been talking about the Prime Minister's 28 bank accounts since the
Yeah.
IC made his report. It has, because everything, there's a domino effect of all of this, because you see a few people being prosperous and you see a majority just living in abject poverty. Because forget about the middle class. Because the teachers, doctors, the lawyers, the policemen, they were the middle class. And they can't afford a decent life. So you see the effects of this on the ground. And you say salaries are a major part of the budget. Yes, the budget cannot carry the weight of the parliamentary salary increases. And it is obvious to everybody. I don't care what anybody, look at it. And you see that it is a burden on the taxpayers. And for them not to have had the foresight to say, you know what, we cannot do this to ourselves, because then not only the optics of it, but we cannot sustain this. So I can see how all of this can be happening at this time. But we'll keep this in the public space so that Jamaicans can be reminded of what is happening and to understand that they need to be informed, educated voters.
Absolutely. And I think that is what is going to be the game changer. As we continue to give the Jamaican public and the citizens at home and in the diaspora a better understanding of how the system works and how it should work, and as we continue to keep the issues in the fore of their minds, there's a change must come, right? Part of the problem is the fact that the Jamaican public have disengaged from them own a business. So when Byron asked me a while ago about the tier, at the top of the tier are the people in Byron.
Exactly.
At the top of the tier are the people, right? So if the people stop talking about it, if the employers stop talking about it, if the people who own the money stop talking about it, which employees will continue to proceed to fix a problem? If the owners, and the financiers and the employers, them, all right, and just sit down and say, everything all right. So I am promising you, Jamaica, you see, if we just continue to do what we're doing now, it is going to change. And I want to say this, the issue and the discussion that we're having is not unique to Jamaica. The challenge that auditor generals have all across this planet is the same. Why? If you give 19 or call it, say 20 people, cabinet probably have about 25 people if you count the ministers without portfolio and the ministers. And if you put that little handful of people in charge of $1.3 trillion, and the people who own the money have a hands-off attitude, Byron, even in the private sector. Let me just draw breaks right here. Did folks, I don't know if you saw the news, I think it was today or yesterday, but I thought it would have been important to share this with Wilfred when we talked again, and we're here. So I was going to say, Will, did you see how Mocha draw down upon a fraud in Sagicor this week? Byron, you know how them discovered a fraud? It's the same process that the Auditor General of Jamaica goes through, that them find out about them kind of fraud when they see it happening. And Mocha draw down, where is that? Private sector. So if the private sector have people taking advantage and committing financial crimes when them have for them looking glass, primed and searching, you can imagine a Jamaican government with $1.3 trillion and we're not as diligent as private sector. What is happening? I just want us to be clear that it is human nature that we're fighting against. If you lower people and give them your assets, them going to abuse it, whether you're in private sector or whether you're in public sector. Sagicor managed to catch it, but guys, it was happening for a couple of years before them realize. So I'm trying to say that private sector spends millions of dollars to get an auditor to come in, right? And they value what an auditor is doing because the millions they're paying PricewaterhouseCoopers and Deloitte and Touche is to come in and check and double check them bank account and them reconciliation and double check them accountant, because one of the people who thief from you the most is your accountant. I don't know. And if you heard Steve Harvey tell the story about how he was doing well and the IRS come down upon him and he find out that him accountant was robbing him blind. And that is why you need an auditor, for check and see if your accountant really do them job, because the person who is in the best position to steal from you, Daisy, are your own accountant. So the government needs the auditor to come in and make sure so everything is fine. Private sector does it too. We don't value our auditor general, but private sector out there pay millions of dollars and I make sure so auditor come in and check them business for them. So I just want to say this much, Byron. I came to the conclusion in 2019 that the Auditor General's Department of Jamaica is the place to lend my support to if we're going to fight corruption and mismanagement, because them catch problems from them tiny, right? Contractor General and Integrity Commission, them catch the problem when it manifests into a big gangrenous sore, yeah? Auditor General catch it when it's tiny and we can nip it in the bud. So I am here because I decided to research this thing and find out what is the work they do for us, and decided to put my support behind them because this 9-day wonder have it done. And back to what Daisy says, if the powers that be in spaces like this continue to talk to the people, empower them and educate them, Byron and Anne-Marie, Jamaica will not be the same in 5 years. Okay? Cannot be. Will not be. So I just want to thank you guys for doing what you do, because no matter how much I work hard, if you don't do what you're doing tonight, which is to amplify my voice and the voice of everybody who comes here, the change can't come. So I am telling you, you are a very important, strong link in this chain. Yeah. And I deeply appreciate the conversation tonight.
Thank you. More than welcome. As we said, one of the best, right, valued mind, right? All right, Jamites, do you want to say anything? We are leaving what? We are leaving the best for last. That's it. All right.
No, too generous, but thank you for the opportunity.
All right, go ahead.
Again. Thank you. What I've heard from you, Ms. Calder, and I have to greatly appreciate, and I hope Jamaicans here and in the diaspora are doing the same thing as well. You talk about bipartisan politics, and that is extremely important, and I appreciate that. Change is the only thing that is constant and consistent, and you spoke about, and I appreciate that, and change is what we need. And I deem this whole process as the problem-solving process, and we're at the front of it, where we identify the problem come up with a solution to the problem, strategically plan it, follow up with it, and then we're going to follow through. And I really do appreciate that. And you spoke about something, nepotism. That is something that we need to pay attention to. And this causes a lot of leakages and a lot of mismanagement of money, misappropriation. And that is extremely important. When I look at this over 9-year period where in the education ministry, $902 billion is missing, then there's a problem.
Is unaccounted for, Ja. It's unaccounted for.
I said corrected, unaccounted for. And I completely understand the difference, as you explained, difference of missing and unaccounted, because not all of this is missing. If there is a thing, something is there, but we have to be patient and trust the process. We have to follow the process so we can find out what really happened, right? When I look at the process, I look at it as saying tardiness, negligence. For 9 years and we have this problem in the education system. It's like no work happening each year to give what is happening in that period of time. And I look at I say that there's some problem there. You look at the healthcare system and over 10 years, and that is now bordering on both political parties. Yeah. And over 10 years, 695 billion, I think, in the healthcare system. Yeah, that is a problem.
It certainly is. Yeah.
And accountability screams loudly right there.
Right.
And we're able to know, get so familiarized with this word accountability, and knowing what it is, and know how to hold people accountable, then we can now ask for change and push for change. What I would like to ask though, we are waiting for the AG's report on the 31st of December, you said?
And it will be tabled in the House the second week in January, which is when we will all have access.
Nice. Thank you. I'm asking, would that now show the amount of money that would be that has been allocated to fit the budget of these ministries, so we can have a comparison, so we can see the percentage what is misappropriated in each ministry?
Misappropriated is I want to be careful with that word because I don't even think you will find that word in the Auditor General's report any at all. If she gets the records, if there are any variances, if there are any concerns, if there are any laws broken, I think it's Daisy who said it very well regarding us. We have laws we have to follow. We have tax laws we have to follow. If you have a business, you have to register it with the Companies Office under the Companies Act. And that act requires you to provide them with a financial statement every year. Now, we in the private sector, if you have a company and you're not following those laws, you know the government coming after you, don't it? And you know the accountability going to be, swift and hard, right? So, so that is a point. I'm glad you're giving me a chance to reiterate, Jab, because all of what we're talking about here are financial laws that have been broken. All. Right? So I would like the government to tell us come January morning, when they have that report, how are they going to hold the civil servants who have facilitated and allowed this? You see that tier that Byron and I discussed? Everybody on that tier has to be held to account,
That's true.
Right? And that is one of the things that's bothering me. That even though we're talking, even though the Ministry of Finance, the minister has come out and said, look, guys, I got the Ministry of Education earlier this year, and to the commendation of Minister Favour Williams, she started the ball rolling. She has a couple of them that have now been reports submitted to the Auditor General. But I want the minister to tell me, who are you going to hold to account? Any civil servant who could sit down for 10 years and don't do them job, not supposed to have a job, Ja.
Oh,
no, not supposed to have a job. So I want to hear about more than just a report that has now gone in. I really think the government and the parliament owes it to us to tell us, how are you going to hold these very same people to account? I find it very hard to be confident and trusting these to persons who we pay, but we're quite fine with creating an environment. Hear this point now, Joe. In the absence of these reports and all the other things the Auditor General has told us, they have created an environment that makes corruption very easy. You understand? So whether or not the corruption even happened, you have created an environment that is fertile for it to happen. And I think those people should be held to account for it. So that I don't want to miss the point I was trying to make to you, and I interrupted my own thoughts talking about the accountability. But remind me, Ja, what was it you said a while ago that I was addressing?
You were addressing the fact that if they're waiting, we are waiting the AG's report.
Right, the misappropriation. Right. I want to be very clear and explain this again because it's important, and it took me a little while to get it because of how the media carries the reports about the Auditor General. Most of us would probably think that the Auditor General will use words like corruption or misappropriation. She never does. The Auditor General is going to flag anywhere that she sees variances between what is in the budget and what government entities spend. The next thing she's going to do is she's going to flag any laws that have been broken, but she's never going to call it corruption. It is the job of another watchdog agency now to do an investigation because all she is the umpire. She raised the red card and says something over here to look at. It's not her job to decide whether or not it was corruption or misappropriation or fraud. Yeah? It is her job to raise the alarm. An FID flying or MOCA flying or IC flying. You understand? And when they are finished with their investigation, then we tell us straight up whether or not. This now is a matter for prosecution. So I just want to explain to you that her report is not going to have the word misappropriation in it. She's just going to tell you about the variances when things are missing. Ja, you know something can be missing and I not thief nobody thief it. And not necessarily stealing, you know. There are other reasons why it cannot be in the place it should be. The Auditor General is not that kind of investigator. Her job is just to say, it's not in this room where it's supposed to be. Somebody try and find it. The investigation might turn out errated. It was lent over to another ministry and see the paper here, but we never see it. You understand, Ja? Which is why we will not call it corruption or misappropriation until an investigation is done. But she's the one to fire the alarm. It's like you're going to the 4x100, but she have to run off first. But she must pass that baton on to another government entity. So I just want to manage our expectations about what the Auditor General does and what we will find in that report. Yeah.
So, like a fire alarm as well. To say there's a flashing.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say that again for me, please?
I'm saying just like a fire alarm that will go off flashing.
Correct. Right. And there's no doubt about it. It's never gonna be a false alarm, you know, because that is one woman when she come to Parliament, she's going to say, if you don't give me the documentation, I can't pass you. I only deal with the black and white, right? So when she raises an alarm, there's usually a very good reason, Ja, why she said there's an alarm to be raised. And just let me let everybody know in terms of fairness. When an Auditor General's report go to the Parliament, it's not like, say, the ministry don't see it before it go, you know. The ministry gets a copy of that report in a jar and then get a chance to say, Auditor General, you know, man, you misunderstand the situation, right? She gives it to them and say, look, these are my findings. What do you have to say? And so you get a chance, Jeff, to say, boy, maybe somebody in the office never give the AG X and Y and Z. So you as the PS get a chance to straighten it out. But if you can't straighten it out, she's going straight to the people of Jamaica to say, this is my findings and I can back it up because I have the documentation. Understood? Yeah.
All right. Well said. Well said. Ratty, you're now in the space. Please go ahead, sir.
Come on, Sister JC, big up yourself. Now, let me just say that Jamaica has a history of strong, courageous women. You can go back to Nani, or maybe even before Nani. But Nani, I think, is the one most notable in our history, as in terms of starting the whole thing. And we have lots of strong, courageous women in Jamaica today. But two of the most courageous ones, the ones that do them work and speak truth to power, and we have to recognize them. One of them is with us tonight. JC, as me call her, Jeannette Calder. And the other one is Pamela Ellis Monroe. We don't give them enough credit for the things that they've done. They're not looking for no credit, you know. They're not looking for them just to do them job. But it's about time we recognize them for what they're doing. And it's about time we start paying close attention. Jamaican people, I want me to talk to, whether at home or abroad. We need to pay attention to these two strong, courageous, intelligent women are saying to us. By no means am I saying that they are the only two, but I'm saying that these are two of the most prominent ones. Now, having said that, JC, I have to be honest with you, I'm confused. Not by the things that you're saying, but confused by what the government is saying.
Okay.
Because you ran down a list of people who you said they're in the chain of command, or they're in the know.
Hierarchy.
We talk about the financial director, permanent secretary, cabinet secretary, financial secretary. We talk about the revenue protection division, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of this, Ministry of that. So many people involved in this thing. And yet, the alarm has been ringing for years, because every year the Auditor General give them our findings, and not just now she come with the findings, and it's not just now you are talk about it.
Right.
Here is where I'm going with it. I watched the person with the responsibility for of being a spokesperson for the government, the mouthpiece of the government. She came out almost a week ago, 6 days ago, and she said no money is missing, and that was echoed by the Minister of Finance, Honorable Favor Williams, and it was also echoed by another lady in the audience who said no, money is not missing. Now I went and looked up some definitions, right? I look for unaccounted funds, and here's what my dictionary tells me. It says it is money that is not present, and there is no explanation. Not present, no explanation. Then I said, let me check out missing money, because them say the money is not missing. And missing money says is money that was expected to be in a specific location or account is not found due to several reasons, including theft, misplacement, or accounting error. Then I said, well, wait a minute now. If the money it is not unaccounted, or it's unaccounted and it's not, or not unaccounted, not missing, then let me look for the definition for stolen money. And it says money that has been taken from someone without their permission. And it goes on to say theft is a crime that involves taking someone else's property, blah, blah, blah. It talks about larceny, embezzlement, fraud, so on and so forth. Now, you know, so me I set the question up, right? Because we don't just want to tonight. The lady who a week ago said that the money is not missing. You know, the thing about absolute terms is that absolute terms by their very nature are sometimes absolutely wrong. Start saying all or never. You know, you have to be very careful.
I agree.
They come out and say no money, no missing. No, I bring your attention and everybody's attention to this expenditure in the report, and I'll read it. And this one is for the Ministry of Education. It says the Ministry of Education made payments. This was, let me go back, 2021. It says made payments amounting to 124 million Jamaican dollars to an entity which does not have a legal status, and the purpose and use of the funds are unknown. Now, I went and I did a little research, and I found out that they were talking about the incident involving the acting Secretary, Grace McLean.
That's correct.
Right. And they're saying that she was personally responsible for disbursing about 12 million out of the 124. And the rest of it went to an entity that is not even registered as a government entity. Then I went and I looked further in your efforts, your report. I went and I looked at it. And at the back of your report, I saw surcharges.
Right.
And when I look, I see that, yes, this money, they tried to collect this money. And guess what? It is now time barred.
Correct.
Cannot get this 124 million. It's gone. They cannot get it through surcharges. Grace McLean had Mr. Champagne as her lawyer. He went and he said, look, under the statute, you have a certain amount of time to bring this action to recover the funds. That time has passed. You cannot get that money. The other group, same thing when I looked in there. It says the time to collect that money has passed, so the government cannot bring legal action right now under surcharge, maybe some other statute. But as far as surcharge is considered, it's gone. So my question to that lady who spoke last is the $124 million. Is that unaccounted funds? Is that missing funds? Or is that stolen funds?
And it might not be any of the three.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing now, sis. One thing we show off. It might not be any of the three, but we know when we get to understand is that if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, we know one thing we know is not a chicken. We can't say it's a duck. We know it's definitely not a chicken. But the question is this. You spoke eloquently last week and tonight about value for money.
Yes.
Question is, did the Jamaican people get value for this 124 million? And
well,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. And the answer, let's just bring everybody into it and make sure that they're with you. One of the mechanisms that government has outside of going to a court, and everybody here know how that can be hard to get a public official or a politician before a court, and it is. So we have some other ways and means of sanctioning them, and we call them administrative sanctions. That within a ministry, you don't have to go before no court, but within a ministry, the law empowers the ministry to act. And one of those things is called a surcharge. And in the case of a surcharge is anytime a public official basically has made a decision, whether they did something or something they were supposed to do and did not do it. So it ended up costing the people of Jamaica money. The idea is that them to pay it back. It's simple as that. And I'm sure everybody listening would have said, but then something that must cost, Jeanette, if you cause me to lose money, then you don't pay it back. Well, there is such a thing in government that allows the Ministry of Finance to make that decision. The law says the Auditor General, when she finishes her audits, if she finds that a particular public official has acted in a way, particularly if it was an unlawful way, she is to report it to the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance then looks at the matter and decides whether or not that public servant will be surcharged, meaning they have to pay back the money. In the case of Grace McLean, Ms. McLean, as Permanent Secretary for Education, had actually paid out much more than this in a will. But why the surcharge came up, my recall is the Auditor General is saying after the Permanent Secretary found out that the entity getting this money did not have a legal status, she made further payments. So you notice how fair the government is. Public officials don't have to be too afraid. If you never know, you never know. But if you now know that this entity that's getting this money doesn't have any legal standing, why did you continue to pay out some more millions? So the Auditor General recommended that the Permanent Secretary be surcharged. And as Will said, the law, the Financial Administration and Audit Act, that's the legislation that instructs public officials how to use our money, how to care for it. It clearly states that if 3 years pass between when that public official caused that loss to the public coffers, after 3 years, you can no longer surcharge them. What we have found from the research that I have shared with Will is that in a number of cases, nothing happens, things get dragged out. So even though them supposed to pay it back, in several instances, those monies are not paid back because more than 3 years passed, Byron and Ann, before somebody surcharged them. And that is what happened with Grace. We discovered it. We saw her removed from the ministry. We were told that she was going to be surcharged. And then the next thing we know, 1 more year passed, 2 more year passed, and bragadaps. The law say you can't do it after 3 year pass. So we didn't get that money back. So that is what Will is saying. In the case of that one, Will, the money wasn't stolen because nobody went in and broke into the bank. And an authorizing officer and an empowered officer, as in the permanent secretary, authorized that payment. It was not unaccounted for because we know where it is. Because that is what accounting means, that you're in a position to say what happened. And we can account for it. What happened in this case is that it was an unlawful transaction. So, and that is why I say it can easily be a case where no thief, nothing is stolen, it is accounted for, but it doesn't mean all is well. In this case, it was an unlawful act to pay money out to a committee. You ever know any committee I get $124 million in government? A committee, you know. Right. So that was just to share with Will why, as Ja said, we have to mind our business. Ja, what I want you to do, I'm going to give you an assignment. Because when I come back here, I want you to tell me what you found. I want you to look in the Auditor General's report when you get it. Come January morning, Ja. I want you to look for the section on surcharge. And I want you to share with your listening public here what the Auditor General says she thinks about who must be surcharged in government this year. And then what we, the people, are going to demonstrate us here is how we have to demonstrate to Jamaica that you can mind your business. So once we see that, Ja, you know what we are going to do? 3 months after that, you and I again, when write the Ministry of Finance and ask, where the process there? You with me, Ja? All right. And then 3 months after that, you know what we're going to do again? We're going to write them again. I bet you the year is going to end and you're going to see some people surcharge. The reason it hasn't happened is because the people don't mind them business, Daisy. Who going to mind it for you? No, man. So, Ja, you up for it? It's an experiment. What you say?
Here's my highlighter.
All right, my brother. All right, my brother. We're going to show the Jamaican people, say, no, this is a serious schoolroom, and we're going to show them how we do it. And it's not going to take more than, I don't think it's going to take more than 2 hours out of our time for the year to do this job. And we're going to get results. Watch and see. All right? Okay.
JC, I just think that there is no political will to do the right thing in terms of reducing corruption. We talk about it, we the politicians.
That is true.
That is, they talk about it, but they don't do anything. Another thing that the lady said almost a week ago was that she blamed it on the previous administration and the system. She said it was the system. They had a completely new system, and so they had to move things from one system, the old system, into the new system. And so there are delays and this and that. Well, when I heard that, I said, well, wait a minute, I need to go do some research and find out about this new system.
Yes, sir.
What I found out was that they went from a cash system to something called an accrual system.
No, that's not quite it, Will.
Go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, but I'm glad you raised that. That is part of a change, to be honest, that the government has made that will make it easier for them to track how our money moves. But that's not quite what she was referring to.
What is the system she's referring to?
The system she's referring to is called the FinMan system, Financial Management System.
And when was it implemented?
Will, you see, you hit the nail on the head. Let's make sure that is not just me and you talking. Let's bring the folks in so that they follow us. So Wilfred is right. Our Minister of Information, her name is Dr. Dana Morris Dixon. She was a senator and she has now been promoted. She's still a senator, but she's now also the Minister of Information. She offered up an example in the post-cabinet press briefing. And she said that the government is basically in transition, meaning they have a new system that's doing the accounting. And the challenge is that some ministries are struggling a little bit with it, and that is why they are behind. Now, Daisy, when you hear that, you'd have said to yourself, oh God, that Calder woman, the wicked, and you know, man, she knows, she said the government just need a little, every little, you know, new things need a little ironing out and pings and just a little teething pains, and see how the woman come down hard on the government. And I am here to say to you that I, with the greatest of respect to the Minister of Information, I disagree with her because of what Will just said. When was the system put in place? Now, Daisy, you would have thought it's only fair to assume that the minister's statement suggests that it could be like a year or two. No, so this system was put in place 6-7 years ago. So, Anne, do you think it is reasonable that a system that was put in place in 2018, that should be a reason for, let's say, a ministry that has been around for that has been delinquent for 6 years? This new system has been around for 7. And this ministry has been delinquent for 9, 6, or 7 years. I mean, how long does it take for you to work out the kinks? And here's an even better question. And no, Wilfred was going to ask this one next. We have 16 ministries, 15 ministries of government. If 10 of them can get it right, and why 5 of them are struggle? And my question is, Will, why are the ones that have the larger share of the budget happening to be the one that can't figure out the system? So I am saying, Minister, bring back to the people of Jamaica better particulars, because the idea that the Finman system is the problem, I don't support you on that, because it's 6-7 years now. And if other ministries can work it out, I don't believe that that is the primary reason why these ministries, Wilfred, are having this problem. And let me add the last thing. I really am trying to share some practical, examples of what Just said. We're minding our business now. Last year, when the Public Accounts Committee got from the Auditor General a report on the Ministry of Health and the COVID spending, by the way, we really didn't get a bad report. It was pretty decent, better than most countries. Jamaica was actually recognized internationally for the way in which our Ministry of Finance handled those emergency spending, because that's so you normally see mischief, and they didn't do badly at all. However, the Auditor General in that PAC meeting raised the fact that the ministry for how many donkey years has not given her these financial records. And the permanent secretary said, Wilfred, the problem is the Finman system. It broke down. The public accounts said to the PS, did you report it to the Accountant General and the Ministry of Finance? The permanent secretary said, yes, he did. The Ministry of Finance, who is always at these meetings, was asked to check on it. When they came back, Wilfred, nothing never go. So, my question to everybody listening is, if a permanent secretary comes before the Public Accounts Committee, the People's House, and carries the country wide on something as important as, why have you not accounted for, at the time it would have been 8 years worth, billions of dollars, and you did not tell the truth? I believe, and that should have been a career-ending decision. I'm dead serious. But Wilfred, nothing came of it. And JAMP wrote to the Public Accounts Committee this year in May and asked, how are you going to hold this permanent secretary to account? Because, Byron, I am minding my business. I have not yet gotten an answer, Wilfred. But I'm sharing with you that this is something that permanent secretaries have said, as this PS said, did not tell the truth to our PAC. And we are hearing again that it is the Finman system is the problem. And I'm saying that the Minister of Information has to give the country better example than that, because that is a 7-year-old system that she's referring to. And I hope that helps people to understand better why I don't think that was an acceptable answer.
One last question. And actually, it's a sad commentary on Jamaica. How reactive we are and how slow we are to do things. This is an example that has nothing to do with the report. It's completely separate and apart. It has to do with the JCF when the court ruled that the JCF should set up a digital system to pay policemen and women on time and overtime. because they were using, based on what I've been told, they were using a manual system and it was highly inefficient. So the
Okay.
court ruled in 2022 that, listen, you have 1 year, you have until April 1st. In 2022, they said you have until April 1st, 2023 to put that system in place so that the people who put their lives on the line can be paid accordingly, appropriately, on time.
Right.
Now, the time came. Oh, the Minister of Finance disbursed the funds to the Ministry of National Security to set up that system. To date, that system is not fully implemented, and
Okay.
people are still not being paid their rightful wages, including overtime, on time. So for me,
Okay.
it's there's a pattern and practice of this government just dragging their feet to do what is right. And as you said, it's about time that we start minding our own business. And I particularly love your description of how we should, or how we should think in terms of
Right.
viewing government. And in fact, my producer is clipping that piece out, and we're going to be using that as
Okay.
a public service announcement to people, because and people need to hear it. I don't want, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I think it's worthwhile if you could please explain that to people, how that we're not voters, we're investors, we're employees.
Sure.
Just
Right.
go over this, please.
I would be happy to, because, Daisy, and Byron, after doing this for 5 years, I was sharing with Will and the team that we've finally kind of figured out what our message is. If you were to say to me, Jeanette, what is your message for the Jamaican people as a pro accountability advocate? And I would say, I was saying to Will that you have to figure out who you really are. Because until you figure out who you are, Byron, you can't manifest the behavior. You can't position yourself. You can't take the authority. You can't walk in it. And if you don't know who you are, So I said to Will and the team that we see ourselves primarily as citizens, voters, and taxpayers. And I have a problem with that. Because when you think of yourself as a citizen, you're focusing on where you belong. And that is good. But we need to begin to focus on ourselves as owners. What belongs to me? When we move from renting a place to owning a place, me no need to tell you, I know all of a sudden people understand what maintenance of property is, It's now an asset for you. So as long as Jamaicans only see themselves as citizens and focus on the sentimentality of it and don't realize you own all the assets that we call government building, government land, and government money, it's mine. That's one of the ways in which we have to shift our thinking. And the next one was, I am not just a voter. When you see yourself as a voter, it is a signal to you that you have one dege something to do every 4 or 5 years, Byron. But that's not true. Voting is really a mechanism to hire 63 people. And if you are going to, when the MP knock on your gate in a couple of months and ask you for the work, because that's what he's doing, and you ink your finger, give him the job, you have actually employed him. So now you are the employer and he works for you. We have placed them on a pedestal and we have been serving them when they are there to serve us. I don't think I said this the last time, Will, but when you ask Jamaicans what the word minister means, they say, John, when they say, what does the word minister mean? They think of a noun. They think of the privilege of, people with this portfolio. The word minister is a verb. It means to care for the interests of another. That is how Jamaicans need to see it, as the verb. So you vote him in, he serves you, she serves you, you are the employer. That means you have something you are supposed to be doing every day. And the last one is, you are not just a taxpayer, where somebody who is a legislator just sign a piece of paper and say, you have to give me 75% on this car part you're bringing in, which is happening to me right now. Instead, I am financing every single announcement that the administration is making. I am paying for it. I am making it possible. I am giving up something so that that announcement and that ribbon can be cut and that new building can be built. So I am the shareholder. I am the investor. And I want a return on my money because that's what investors want, Byron. So that's the thing I'm saying to Will. JAM's message to Jamaica is know who you are, my people. You are not just a citizen, a voter. Yeah, when you're a voter, you are the means to somebody else's end. When you're an employer, they become the means to your end. So let us focus more on I am a financier, I am an employer, and I am the owner of all of these assets. And see if Jamaica don't change.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. As I said earlier, right, that, you know, we are lucky. We are so happy, right, to have, you know, one of the best valued mind right here with us. And, you know, I want to say, Jeannette, right, from once you're at the helm as it relates to JAMP, we are 100% confident that our affairs, right, in terms of checks and balance, right, and bringing out the information is in a perfect hands to do so. We want to say big thanks to make Mystic Sensation tonight, Janet. And we are asking you, right, an open invitation for you to return,
Absolutely,
right, at your convenience.
Anytime. And I have already done.
Before you go, Jeanette, one thing I want to because you talk about a while ago the role of the people of Jamaica. They are more than voters. They employ the politicians, which is true.
Yeah.
And I cannot square away, you know, what the minister Dana Morris said in terms of the system not working after so many years, because 10 to 12, 11 years to bring records up to date is really unacceptable. Because would the government accept that from the businesses that are operating in Jamaica? Absolutely not. But another thing, though, when you talk about the rights of the Jamaican people beyond being a voter, we are also trying to help them understand the importance of not selling their votes.
Yes.
People must, when the politicians come to them, they must come to them with a record of what have you done for me lately. It's not about giving a person one donkey here, one bar there. It's not about. It's supposed to be a collective thing, because to the collective, everybody benefits. When the politician fix a road, he ought not to be lauded and praised and patted on the shoulder for doing his or her job.
Correct.
Seeing politicians out there riding on tractors and laying carpet and cutting lawns, it's not the road. That's not the job they're supposed to be doing. Members of parliament are supposed to advocate. They're advocates for their constituents. Right. And they're supposed to advocate on their behalf for better schools, better roads, better hospitals. And every constituency has different needs, but some are the same. They have some across the board that are the same, but different. A farming community has a different need from a non-farming community, like in Kingston. So they have to advocate accordingly. But this brings me to the constitutional reform conversation, because there's not any framework in place now to recall or impeach of parliament. They just do this, disrespect the Jamaican people, and they just come 5 years and say, here's $5,000 and a box of food, give me your vote. And because the people are suffering so much and they are not in tune to the importance, or they don't understand the importance of their vote and their importance in the role of government, they will sell that vote and take $5,000 and a box of food, and then they have no mortgage their lives and their children's lives for generations to come, to people who really don't care about them. So now, should there be a concerted effort made for Jamaican people to get them really involved in the constitutional reform process, to make sure that at the top of this constitutional reform is the rights of the people to impeach politicians and to recall them. Because if that is not in there, then we are not having a serious conversation about constitutional reform. It should not be about protecting a president, going from prime minister to president. It's not about their rights. It's not about, it is about the right of the people who they are seeking to get the job from.
Right. I completely agree with you. That particular matter is one that I'm really advocating hard on. I got to the point, though, Daisy, where I don't use the word impeach anymore, because impeach is a particular kind of accountability mechanism. And I think the Jamaican people have to decide what mechanism they're going to use. What we want, or what I know I want, is if I have an employee who is not performing, and if I have an employee who has engaged in misconduct in a way that things look bad for my business, I should be able to remove him from his position. I have had to let at least 6 people go, or 7 people since JAMP started. Not one of them committed a crime, Daisy, right? But if they are not following office procedure, and if they are not helping us to meet the objectives of JAMP, I have to let these people go. Now, I'll give you one quick example. If I have a member of parliament, and we have a few, and for the last 3 years, he has not been to the office more than 38% of the time. No, we don't have a problem there, so Daisy. If a parliamentarian is not showing up on the job, which Jamaican you think anybody listening here could have a job if they're only coming 70% of the time? We're parliamentarians coming for less than 40. And not only do they keep their jobs, but they got a double in them salary last year. What is that? That's madness. So I am of the view that how could one of the most important jobs in this country, if not the most important, how can the people, the employers, you and I, have a bar so low that it doesn't matter how they perform, their job safe? That cannot work. So I am definitely advocating for I prefer to call it an accountability clause that will enable the people to remove a parliamentarian before election time, right? So by whatever means we call it, whether it's impeachment, whether it's recall, or whatever we choose to, it needs to be there. Mayors can be impeached. Did you know that, Daisy? In 2015, the legislators in the House put a clause in the Local Government Act where mayors at the central government level can be impeached. The president that is coming in, the Constitutional Reform Committee, has proposals for how the president, if we get one, can be impeached, right? But they cannot figure out how. Parliamentarians must be impeached, or something is wrong with that. I can figure out a future one that don't come yet. I can figure out the leaders at the central government level. But when we look at at the local government level, but central, parliamentarians in the parliament, they just don't know how to work out that. And I don't think that is the truth. They do know how, they're just not willing to be held to account. So the question is, I would love to end on the note of how can you and I begin to apply pressure to our employees to do their job? And JAMP has some petitions on our website, that operates a little bit differently from other petitions. Most petitions you sign, it go to government and nobody don't really know who get it and who read it and all of that and who must do what. So we said, no, we're going to do it differently. So if anybody's listening and tonight you recognize some of the truths that have been shared here, and that we are a part of the problem, and you want to say, Ms. Calder, how can I make the first step to changing that? We would say, let your voice be heard. Talk to your employees. Talk to the Parliament of Jamaica. Talk to the government. You can't walk down the corridor and knock on the Prime Minister's door, but you can talk to him. Technology makes it possible. So I am just going to drop in the chat the link and ask Byron to share it with you. This is where you go to sign a petition, but it goes to your MP and it goes straight on the records of the Parliament. So if your MP even decide they say, I'm going to ignore you, when you hit that button, it goes straight to the clerk of the House and it is placed on the record that Daisy Magazine say. And what are we saying? We're basically asking 3 things of the government. We're saying to not the government, the Parliament. We're saying to the Parliament, the Jamaican people need some real answers as to how this neglect took place in our financial records, because that's what an employer would ask them employee. How this happen? The next thing we want to know is, what is your plan of action, Byron? We don't want an announcement and we don't want a speech. We want a plan of action that JA can trace and track, because the government said this is what we're going to do in the first month, then in another 3 months, and then in 6 months, so that JA can track it and we can see whether or not them on the way or them slacking off. So we want a plan of action to fix this financial record problem. And the third one is, how are we going to hold to account the people who must be held to account for this? That's the question we're asking our parliamentarians and our parliament as a whole, because that is what we pay them to do, Byron. The job of parliament is to watch government and monitor them to make sure that the laws that the parliament pass and the budget them pass are respected. So I'm asking the Jamaicans to go to the link that Byron will share. If you're in the diaspora, you still send money a yard, you still take care of your community, you click the button for the constituency MP and ask him that question. And there's another one, Daisy, that's there. Since you raised the matter of impeachment, there's also one there for impeachment. I will drop it in the chat, Daisy. Sign it. Well, I can certainly thank you for the signatures we're getting. So far, this has been our most supported petition. And I know your program made a difference. And I just want to thank you. And I'm sure Mystic Sensation, them sharing the link tonight, will also make a difference. Guys, let's do our part.
Definitely.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, and the very best of night, and much love to everybody here. Really appreciate you all. Yeah,
awesome.
Okay. God bless Jeanette. Yeah.
God bless you, Daisy. Bye, Anne.
Thank you.
His partner.
All right.
Jeanette, before you go, one quick question. Both had a question. I guess because of how you speak, he just wanted to know when it's your birthday. I guess he just wants to know the month and the.
Oh my God! you know, and that is something even my staff had to track down my driver's license to figure it out. Me not tell people my birthday, you know. Me will tell you the year I'm born, but me not tell you my birthday. Just in case. No, Will. Just in case you think say I'm age, I'm afraid. I'm not afraid to tell me born in a 71. But me not tell you my birthday. but I will tell you this much. I am a Gemini.
Okay.
All right, guys. Talk to you soon. Blessings, Byron. Take care.
Have a wonderful rest of the time, Jeanette. All right. Wonderful conversation there. Quite edifying. So we are going to close with the final clip that we are going to play, and then we close off. Right. We are just going to share a conversation that the pollster Dan Anderson made as it relates to his view, right, on both of the political parties and why the People's National Party is gaining the momentum. So let us just listen, tune in into that clip and just hear what Dan Anderson has to say. Without any delay on it, let us play that. And this is the conversation. So if you want the full hearing, you can just go over by the conversation.
It's been constitutionally due in September 2025. The dynamics between the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party are taking center stage. Good evening and welcome to the conversation. With us tonight is renowned pollster and political analyst, Dr. Dan Anderson. We'll discuss leadership, trust, and the electoral landscape. Stay with us. Welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the conversation, Dr. Anderson. How are you?
I am good. Thank you very much. Good to be on your program again.
It's awesome. So congratulations are in order. So I ensure that I started by saying Dr. Anderson.
Thank you very much. The university was kind to me, so I welcome that, and I'm really honored by what they've conferred on me recently.
Recognition of that many years, decades of hard work.
It is decades.
Awesome. So allow us to get some context in the recently concluded Dan Anderson poll that was done between September and October. What were some of the questions that you would have looked at so that would be able to inform how we move forward in the discussion this evening?
As usual, when we do a poll with a questionnaire, which is about 10, 15 questions long, we start from the general and then get to the specific, by which I mean we talk to people about what are the challenges that they're currently facing, what are the big problems that they identify in the country that needs to be addressed at this point in time. Then we look at how the leaders are actually regarded. What's the favorability rating for the respective leaders? What about the respective parties? Then we ask people how are they likely to turn out to vote? And if they are, how are they likely to vote and the reasons why? So general to the specific.
Mm. So with that said, now, if I wanted to get an understanding as to what would be some of the factors that are driving the expectation, say, of such a close contest between both political parties, where would that fall?
Well, maybe I should address the issue of the closeness of the race at this point in time, because until February of 2024, it was close.
Yes.
I think what we have found since April, when we did the next poll, April 2024, following the local government elections, which, both parties claim victory.
Yes.
You can't get any closer than that.
But one party had the popular votes.
Exactly. When we published the poll in February, just about a week or two before the local government elections, the Jamaica Labour Party had a 1 percentage point lead, which is coming from a situation where between 2018 and 2023, there was no poll that we conducted that had the People's National Party within striking distance.
Yeah.
They were as far as 16 percentage points behind at one stage. So when we got to 2023, that gap narrowed. And when we did the poll in February of 2024, the Jamaica Labour Party's lead had been cut to 1 percentage point. Now, you can't get any closer than that. That's what we predicted. That's what we had 2 weeks before the February local government elections. What was the result of those elections? One party claimed the popular vote.
Yes.
One party claimed the popular number of divisions and councils. So, in essence, that 1 percentage point was vindicated by the results of the February elections. Well, since then, and I'm just addressing this issue of the closeness that you spoke to, since then, the People's National Party went ahead by 7 percentage points in the poll we did 2 months after the local government. And when we did the one in September, there were 9 percentage points ahead. So it at this point, it is not a close race. The Jamaica Labour Party has some gap to catch up with, so some gap to narrow down before we can call it a close race.
But in the normal scheme of things, would that 9 percentage point be something that they should be worried about, so to speak?
Oh, obviously, any party that's trailing by 9 percentage points should be worried.
So it's outside of the margin of error. What's the margin of error this time?
Plus or minus 3 percentage points. We work to that margin of error consistently so that we can compare the trend that we're picking up in respective polls. So when you are 5 percentage points out and 7 percentage points out and 9 percentage points out, it is cause for concern. Obviously, as you go closer to the election date, and we have another 9 months before we get to the constitutionally due elections of 2025, a lot of action, a lot of eyes will be on that gap. And obviously, both parties will be striving. We've already seen the campaign, firing up in sort of earnest. And I believe that come January, we will see an intensification of that campaign, because nobody knows when the election is going to be called, except for
the Prime Minister.
Except for the Prime Minister.
So now, how does the JLP's quest for a third term, how might that influence voter sentiment and opposition strategy?
I believe that it is going to be a significant factor in all of this, because I'd imagine that both parties would have data available to them to see exactly what needs to be done, what are the pressure points that they would need to kind of push buttons for, what they need to do in order to attract more voters to themselves. But I make the point consistently that poll data is an indicative of how people are likely to vote. But, until the campaign starts in earnest, and whatever messages that might be enunciated by respective parties will then serve to win people either over or consolidate. And therefore, elections are won on election day.
So does the would you say then that the polling data, it suggests a significant shift in terms of voter loyalty, or is it more a reflection of leadership perceptions?
It's a combination of both, really. And I make the point that, and it's a very important point to note that between 2011 and 2020, 2011 election, when the PNP went into that election and won 42 to 21, and 2020, when they went into that election and lost 14 to 49, between those 2 years, the People's National Party, and I use the word advisedly, lost 174,000 voters. In other words, 174,000 voters migrated from the PNP in between 2011 and 2020. So 174,000 people fewer voted for the PNP in 2020 than voted for them in 2011. And that's an important factor. But even more important to note is that over the same period, the JLP support in terms of numbers of voters who turned out increased by 4,000.
Do you want to start a podcast, but you're not sure how to do it? Well, Riverside has you covered. Here's how it works.
Support that the Jamaica Labour Party had, right? So by the time we got to 2024 February, we could see the narrowing of that gap from that gulf between the JLP all the way up here, minimum of 10 percentage points ahead of the PNP in 8 polls that we did, to a situation 2023 where the gap was beginning to narrow across here and there, the February elections. And by the February election, I made a point earlier,
1%.
PNP was 1 percentage point behind the Jamaica Labour Party. So the February elections was a shocker for many. Shocker for many because the PNP won the popular support. JLP won more councils. But for a couple of weeks after that, the debate was, the mood was, who won the election?
Yeah.
All right. Those elections were very decisive because when we did the next poll in April, the pattern of narrowing from that huge gulf between the JLP at the top and the PNP 12 percentage points behind switched. Right? Switched. So when we did the poll in April, the PNP 7 percentage points ahead.
And no.
9 percentage points ahead.
So that's a 10% gain.
So we're saying those February elections were pivotal.
So I know that we're not in the habit of calling, but based on what the data is saying, could the inference be made? Should the Jamaica Labour Party call the election early to preempt the PNP from gaining momentum? Because that's what's happening now.
I was I gave a talk at a function the other night, and I threw it out to the audience. What would you do in that situation?
Yeah,
because the gap widened between, but a lot depends on what they have in store to correct that. You know, a lot will depend on that because obviously, the fact of the matter is, that they try to discredit the poll data, the pollsters, so in the hope that if they discredit the polls, that the data will look differently. I've never seen any election anywhere where you decry the pollster and it makes a difference to how people vote.
So you're not questioning the data, you're questioning the pollster as a poll.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been in the business long enough to wear that on my shoulder.
Could we call that desperation, though?
I don't know if it's desperation, but it's a thought that if they could convince people that the data is not correct, then it would make a difference. That doesn't work on the ground. On the ground is who actually gets the people out to vote. All right, so I can understand the strategy, but I haven't seen anywhere where that strategy has worked. That if you discredit the polls, so the data going to look different. The data is the data is the data. I report on what I find. And I reported more often for the JLP leading than for the PNP leading. So, it's uncanny that.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that the February elections were pivotal because it was a shocker for many. So a lot didn't believe that this popular support would come out in favor of the PNP against the background of the beatings that they have had in the political polls over the 8 years from 2016 to 2024.
We think they might have squandered that lead, though, as in they did not do what they ought to have done primarily in the way of communicating their successes, and separate from the fact that we have clearly had some external factors that have affected them. Do you think that there's more that they could have done in the way of communicating and to ensure that?
It's interesting you ask that, because there's a widely held view that the public relations arm of the JLP is strong. So if you think that I haven't communicated it well, I would better lost.
No, I'm just checking if the data would have shared, would have inferred anything like that.
Yeah, because there's a pretty strong feeling that they have a pretty good PR arm. So you need to examine, and we probably will do something at a point in time to see, well, what are the factors that have led to an obviously closing of that gap between the JLP at the top and the PNP down the bottom to a point where the PNP, what are the factors that have conditioned that? And we have a fair amount of data which speaks to it, but I think we'd like to be able to organize it in a better way to be able to represent it.
All right, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing that. Dr. Dan Anderson, thank you very much for taking the time to come and have this conversation with me. And on behalf of the entire CTV production
team.
All
right. There you have it. So, panel, what Dan Anderson is saying, that as a result of the People's National Party gaining that 9% percentage lead out of the margin of error, right, the Jamaica Labour Party is now looking, right, flush on a landslide victory. And, right, the longer the Jamaica Labour Party stay to call the general election, right, more it seems like the People's National Party is gaining a momentum, right? What say you on the subject, Jamaica?
Oh, thank you for that opportunity. Ms. Calder already leave, but I want to quickly say, when we look at the whole situation, we are seeing that hard work is being shunned and ignorance and arrogance is being rewarded in our public space, and that is a big issue. I want to give thanks to her, give thanks to the IC, and we see Mocha doing some work. We have to appreciate it as well. It's good that we're in a social space where we have these people. Jumping now to the conversation just now with Mr. Dan Anderson. As you can see, the Jamaican people not feeling this prosperity. It is a big bag of lie. And what we are seeing that our country's economy had two consecutive negative period of decline, and that caused the Jamaican society to be in a technical recession. And I saw also a report from BOJ saying that we have another period of decline. So we're in a recession, and this means that we are now in a situation where less things are going to be available, less purchases are going to be done because people are going to be holding on to their money, and that is going to affect a lot of things. And so all they're going to talk about the PR of the JLP. The PR is not sufficient to the problem. The problem is nothing is reaching the people's mouth. Nothing is reaching the people's pocket. And in contrary to that, we are seeing 200%, 300% increase in the pockets of politicians. That is a major problem. So hearing this report from Mr. Anderson, it is the fact that what the Jamaican people are experiencing, that no matter how they want to tell you the best finance minister, we saw that he left Jamaica with a $45 million hole in the budget, and that is a problem. The ship is sinking. So when he held up two fingers and said, stay stable to the Jamaican people, it was a joke, it was a lie. And to hear how the changes have been made from how they used to be popular, because what they had catch Jamaica in a period of vulnerability, a period of change, when we're moving from the physical world to now more of the virtual space. And they had the advancement because they had the money, so they got the technology, and they fooled the Jamaican people. And as you can see, they only got 4,000 more votes, while the PNP had lost 1,700 and 400 voters. Yeah.
Yes.
So we look at these things. We have to look at it. These are the reality. But thank God for social media, for people like you, Mr. Rattigan, Miss Daisy, Lady Calder. We have so much more to talk about. So much, even local people, Andre Stevens. We have more people on TikTok. Because again, you have to meet the people where they're at. Yeah, Mr. Tavares as well is one doing it as well. And where there's more education, awareness, then people will make better choices. And the people are seeing that the more informed they're getting, they're understanding that there's three. I want to say I want to use the right terminology that
Yes.
$3 trillion is unaccounted for. And as Mr. Rattigan explained it, if you go to any dictionary, that is what it's going to be. But as Ms. Calder said, we must trust the process. And we're waiting on the Auditor General's report as well so that we can get more information. So to put it all together, what Mr. Anderson is saying in terms of the data, the Jamaican people feeling it. So no surprise that we're hearing this from Mr. Anderson, and it is for the People's National Party to continue to do the work that they're doing in terms of educating people and using technology so that we can create efficiency, that we can have more productivity. And it is movement, it is work, it is accountability, not just on the official part, but we, the business owner, have to take a part in Jamaica. So that is how I saw Mr. Anderson's report.
Thank you. As it relates to that, corruption is the order of the day. People are losing confidence in the Jamaica Labour Party. You have seen the shift as it relates to what Dan Anderson identified. So obviously, Jamaican people are losing confidence in the Jamaica Labour Party, while the People's National Party is gaining momentum of a 9% lead out of the margin of error. Right? Simply means that Jamaica Labour Party is definitely looking on a landslide victory. There's the magazine, Sister Maria. You want to take it away with your input? Oh, Sister Maria frozen. Brother Tigan, you want to ride in that space?
I'm gonna the Jamaica Labour Party.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Are you hearing me? Yes, no, so. Okay. Yeah, you know, in the words of Peter Tosh, only the poor man feel it. The 2020 election was held at a time in the height of COVID. So I can understand why the PNP would have 174,000 people would not have voted in that election, because everybody was trying to stay safe. And if you notice, after the election, you know, you open it up for the election, after you close it down and then charge people $400,000 for not wearing a mask. That's one. Popular votes win elections in Jamaica. Another thing is the current political climate in Jamaica is one scandal after another. And the scandal involves the leadership of the country's government, Andrew Holness. Today we saw another person and his cabinet, another person, Leslie Campbell. Okay,
yes,
that was a scandal. We had the IC report, Andrew Holness, 28 bank accounts. All right, he opened an account with no money whatsoever. Open an account. During the height of COVID, he was opening accounts, opening business, transferring money here, there, and everywhere. Okay, then you have now a situation where another report came out. It involved a company that he was associated with, Estate Bridge, another scandal, violation of building permits. Then you also have to look at his wife, Speaker of the House, Member of Parliament. She's also building doing her own development. She's also in court. For what? Same kind of violations. And all you can see is one scandal after another. He says he's going from poverty to prosperity. Now he's pivoting. But he's pivoting to what? What is he pivoting to? You know, what is he pivoting to? Yes.
That's what the point. Because might be something slipped me, so let me set it straight. Because of course, Freedom and Colleen, they're asking me to set it straight. What I'm saying that the Jamaica Labour Party, as it relates to PNP, leading the 9% margin of error. So let me set it straight, right? And they have a right to call me out on it. So if it sounds like I said it's some the other way around, I need to set it straight. So as a result of the PNP leading by 9%, the GLP is facing what we call a landslide victory, right? From the PNP. So that is what I want to say. So let me fix that.
JLP is not facing, no, correction, mistake. You are saying the JLP is facing a landslide victory. No, landslide defeat.
Yes.
Landslide defeat.
You're right.
The JLP is facing a landslide defeat. Oh my God. Why did that escape me? So let me correct that, people.
Where's your drink? I don't think you had it.
So thank you, thank you, Freedom, and thank you, Colleen, for pointing out that the JLP is facing a landslide defeat from the People's National Party, gaining momentum as it relates to the 9 points out of the margin of error. Thank you once again, Colleen and Freedom. Bless up yourself. Go ahead,
right. So, yes. So, and the thing is, what we would like to say to the Jamaican voters, do not let them come to you and say, oh, we are fixing roads. It is the duty of the government to fix the road. You are the government of the day. You must fix the roads. Oh, you see, we're fixing hospitals. That's your job. It's taxpayers' money. It's not your person. This is not Andrew Only's personal money from one of his 28 bank accounts. This is taxpayer dollars. That's what he's supposed to do. So don't let them come and say, and if the people are seeing the work, then they will be coming to them to repeat it, and to remind them. And another thing, this buying a vote thing really gets on my last nerve, because J.C. Hutchinson on a campaign, at a campaign event said, he gave one farm work ticket and he gave one some chicken, and the rest of them get $5,000 on a box food. You cannot reduce yourself to cents per hour as your value. You cannot devalue yourself so low. And they see you as only being worth a couple cents per hour. They don't see anything more for you. Darrell Valls at a major conference said, give him 5 more years so he can make sure his children and his grandchildren are okay. You have to make that make some sense. Look at the state of your constituencies right now, where you live. Have your members of parliament been doing what it is they're supposed to do on your behalf? Are your schools better? The hospitals better? What about your road infrastructure? The Prime Minister said he's building out all this road infrastructure, and you're going to have culverts and cable and a little rainfall, and the road lift up, you barely see ½ inch of asphalt, and you don't see any cable, you don't see any culverts, and you have to ask the question, then where is the money? Where is the money? So it is important for the voters to become informed, educated, edified voters. Don't come and make promises. What have you done to make the lives of the Jamaican people better? As for national security, the Prime Minister said to the people of Jamaica that he alone can fix it. And he's going to sleep with their windows and their doors open. Now he's saying, oh, we all have to work together. You have to be mindful of what you say, and not because you're on the political campaign. You have to be measured, because you have to look at the situation, size it up, and do a manifesto that reflects the order of the day. It cannot be you just say something, fly by night at the seat of your pants. It has to be more measured than that. So how can he, like somebody said, engineered, Gigi Jones says, it is called engineered hardship. And that is very true, because when they gave themselves 200% plus increase in salaries, that alone added a weight on the government. And then permanent secretaries who are not holding up their end of the bargain, they too got all this increase. And the people in the middle class, They were left to suffer. They say unemployment is the lowest it has ever been in Jamaica, yet the poverty rate is through the roof. So I don't know who is employed, because you cannot call a squeegee man employed if he works if his wife cleaning car glass. That is not permanent employment. You cannot call a person who is juggling on the street employed, refer them to them as being employed. There's no consistency there, and I would think that consistency in a job would mean that the person is employed, because then you have a salary coming in on a regular basis for a longer period of time, whether weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. So that is not happening. So I cannot understand how it is they think that they should be getting a third term when you have a prime minister who's under investigation for illicit enrichment. And you can see that because this is a man who started with nothing, and he went from nothing to being one of the richest men in Jamaica. Not only him, but his family, right? And you also have to look at, there are 6, 7, 8 persons who are also under investigation. Nobody knows who they are. And are you saying that the Jamaican people must vote for these people who are picking their pockets? So they have to come with, it cannot be about PR. Public relations is not what it's about. It is food on the table, the bread and butter issues. How can a cabbage be for $500? Can it be any cheaper? More affordable? There was a program I watched, this lady, she was saying I think she has onion and scallion in her refrigerator. These are the realities that people are facing. So while the Prime Minister will have a great Christmas, hundreds of thousands of Jamaicans will not. They absolutely will not. And it's high time we realize that and do something about it. Like Angeli says, the government failed to do their responsibilities, their duties as public servants. They did not deliver in any campaign promises, pure lies and PRs. And that's true. They forget that they are public servants. When they win the election, they have the biggest chat, and they stand 10 toes down to be disrespectful to the Jamaican people. When they want the vote, they come to you and say, I'm your humble servant. No. When people need to know, what are you? What have you done? Why are you so wealthy? What is your source of income? Because if it was anybody else, you would want to know that the same rules should apply. And unless and until they deal with the corruption problem, with Andrew Holness is a weight on the Jamaica Labour Party. And if they do not say who the other persons are that are under investigation, then they should all be voted out.
So true. So, as Sister Maria rightly said, corruption is the order of the day. And I mean, with the Andrew Holness-led administration, the corruption is unprecedented as it relates to what being out there, right? Yeah, $3 trillion, right? Unaccounted for. However, we have seen incidents where we see $470 million running through various accounts of the Prime Minister, right? And where 3 of his companies, right, involved. Now, the people have lost trust and confidence in this government. We have seen the history of the Jamaica Labour Party administration as it relates to the level of corruption from 1954 until as we speak, and worse in the history of our politics. The Andrew Holness-led administration, right, is the worst of all. Now, as we see, as it relates to the Dan Anderson poll, now the PNP, right, gaining, right, a lead of 9%, right, out of the margin of error, right? And so then I will invite Brother Rattigan in the space to speak.
Yeah, I'm listening to the conversation, listening to the piece you played by the pollster, Mr. Don Anderson. I'm not surprised. I mean, I'm not a political animal. I could care less who's in charge, provided they do what they're supposed to do. As JC said, they're supposed to provide a service. They're supposed to address the needs of the people. And it's obvious now that after almost 9 years, that the party that's in power has proven itself to be incapable or unwilling to do what is necessary to take care of the people. Now, I'm not surprised by what's going on, as I said. in terms of the percentage points, because all you need to do is just look around and you'll see that Jamaica is not what it is supposed to be or what it was promised to us to be. All you need to do, people, very simple. If you want to know where we stand with this government, just go back and listen to the promises made in 2015, 2016, 2020. Listen to those promises and ask yourself this very, very simple question. The promised prosperity, have you received it? Just ask yourself that simple question. Have you received the promised prosperity? And if you have any doubts about your answer, and the answer you shouldn't have any doubts. The answer should be blindingly clear. But if you have any doubts about your answer, I'm going to ask you to do me one favor. Just go to the 2024 Integrity Commission report on Anti-Corruption Day, which just happened last week, December 9th. Just go and read that. I'm not going to ask you to read a whole lot. Just go down, scroll down when you get to it, and just go to the comments made by Mr. Greg Christie, the executive director. That's all I'm asking you to do. And I'm going to make it even easier for you. When you go to the comments made by Mr. Greg Christie, just go to the paragraph that starts, "The danger is real." So you don't have to read the whole heap of things. You don't have to read the whole heap of things. Just read that. And that is a composite of what has happened and is happening in Jamaica for the past 8 going on 9 years. And we did it last week on this program, but I'm going to read it again for those of you who weren't with us last week so that you can listen to it if you don't want to read it, right? Here's what Mr. Greg Christie said. And remember, Mr. Greg Christie, he's the executive director for the Integrity Commission. Very important man, very important position. And if you recall, they wanted to drum him out of his position when they shot one of his commissioners and they asked him some fool question and he said, "Go ask the government." And people felt that, you know, he was being disingenuous, as if to say that the government was responsible for the shooting of the commissioner. But we found out much later on. When the Integrity Commission appeared in Parliament. We found out through Mr. Panton, retired Justice Panton, that the Integrity Commission had written to the government before asking for protection. And that protection wasn't forthcoming, or at least not forthcoming in the way that it was requested. Now, here's what Mr. Greg Christie said. He said, "The danger is real." And you can start with that paragraph, but skip that sentence. Go down to the sentence that starts, "Such failing societies will typically exhibit some or all of the following characteristics." And no tell me say no Jamaica man talk about. No tell me say no Jamaica the man that talk about. The man say, it there. Oh, see there? Yeah. You big up there for me then, please. But it should me look on the other screen and me now pay attention to what you're going over here saying now. All right. Yeah, big it up one more for me there.
Okay.
All right. Big you up there. And just move it. How big is that? All right.
200.
All right. Everybody can see that. You see, look on the top. Look on the top where it's highlighted in yellow and it says the danger is real. My people, my family members, ladies and gentlemen, young men and young women, may I beg on you, please just take 5 minutes out of your day. If you have any questions about how Jamaica is running, why it's running this way, and we say corruption, just go to this section. Just 5 minutes. Just go to this section and just read this one section. Here's what he said. He said the danger is real. Developing countries that are plagued by so I must say, if you have corruption in your country, right, it's going to be a failing country if you allow it to get out of control. If it and when I say allow, meaning that if you don't do something to stem it, And we know that Jamaica is a reactive society. Nothing proactive about Jamaica. So them not stop nothing. They make things happen and then them try deal with it. So I'm saying, if that is the case, here's what your society is going to look like. You're going to have unethical leadership. You're going to have poor public governance and accountability standards. We talk about that tonight. Wastage and theft of public resources and public money. We talked about that. Abuse of public office and government power. We alluded to that. Arrogance on the part of politicians and government officials every day. Public institutions that do not respond to citizens' needs. Same so. Prevalent bribery. Low or decreasing levels of sustainable foreign investment. We see it. Go read PIOJ's report, the latest one. An expanding gap between the rich and the poor. We have heard that Jamaica is a model country for that, where the gap is expanding between the rich and the poor. The middle class is disappearing. High immigration rates. We know that. Talk to the doctors in America and the nurses and the teachers and the policemen. Entrenched poverty. It's on the rise. Increasing cries of inequality and injustice. Talk to the people in our prison. Talk to the people who suffer as a result of the states of emergency. A breakdown in the rule of law. We see that. Impunity for the privileged and the connected. Yeah, same law, but two different applications. Pervasive crime. Them just shot a man today who come off at the plane. He come off at the plane and in car. And before him get to where him go, minutes after the man come out at the airport, them can him up. Where were they? High murder rate. Same thing. Proliferation of organized crime. Jamaica have over 200 gangs. Substandard healthcare and educational facilities. Need I say more? A lack of affordable housing. Talk to the people over the place where the Prime Minister go lick down them house and say, appear criminals over there. But prior to that, he must say, poor man must build them castle. Well, when the poor man them build them castle, poor man build them castle, he go lick it down, say them a criminal. Then him come back the day after and say, no criminal not there. I'm sorry, we are going to better housing. Yeah. Jobs that do not pay a living wage. Go look on the starting report, the latest one, right? And you will see, and we all deal with that Saturday, decrepit roads and infrastructure. I saw something today. It says, in Jamaica, you drive on the left. But no, we're driving on what is left. The little piece. So, you know.
Repeat that again, Ratty.
The decrepit roads and infrastructure. And I saw something today that says, in Jamaica, we drive on the left. But nowadays, we're driving on what is left because the carpet mash up. So when you drive a piece where we can't see, cut the other parts, gone. Right? Inadequate or poor social service and public utilities. Blame this on Dr. Nigel Clark and his band of merry men when them coming with austerity measures to try to pay off the debt. And this is what happened. We don't have enough money to extend the services to the most vulnerable in our communities. A cost of living that is adversely disproportionate to the means of the majority. Going to the supermarket and try buy one could have buy 9 years ago, 8 years ago. Go in there with the same amount of money and say if you can't buy it. A feeling of insecurity and stress among the broader populace. And that's why we have so many people with mental issues in Jamaica, run, because of all of this insecurity and stress, unemployment, all of these other things. And finally, a shroud of hopelessness and despair that hangs over the society. We no need for point that out, Tony, because we not feel it. We not feel it. And so I say to you, my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, family, please go to this report and read it. If you have any doubt about what this government is doing, if you have any doubts whatsoever, just go read this. And if you read this and you look at the way that Mr. Christie enumerates these issues, you have to come to one conclusion. He's speaking about Jamaica. He said when a society, when corruption has overtaken a society, it becomes a failing society. And he said, here are the characteristics. And him name out them, name the ones I'm just read. And I want to tell me, say, there is one inside here that not apply to Jamaica. That I want to tell me. Because if you're not truly honest, if you're truly honest and you care about Jamaica and you put the politics aside and you talk about reality now, you have to come to the conclusion, it is inescapable that this government is not doing what it promised. And then on top of that, when you put in the 3 trillion, when you put in all the other aspects of corruption, see, them just find my brethren there guilty today, Mr. Beverly, them find him guilty. And I'm looking at the statute and I'm saying, Judge, may I make a personal plea to you now, Judge, when it comes to sentencing, send him go to prison. You must send him go to prison. Otherwise, Judge, it's going to be a stain on the judiciary. The whole of we talk about corruption in Jamaica and the effects, far-reaching, wide-ranging effects corruption has on our country, our people, our very being, right? Our survival. And you are going to make a man come pay a fine. What message are you sending? What message are you sending? The message you're sending is that, as I'm it gone now, is that if you come from a certain place and you're in a certain circles or whatever, then you pay the fine and it's fine. It's not a problem. We cannot have that. You have to make an object lesson out of this, man. Make an object lesson, Judge. If you listen to this, or if your people might listen to me, want them tell you, Judge, no ease up on this, man. We don't want no fine, a straight prison. We want them have another one. Marissa Philibert, Dalrymple Philibert, straight prison. We are asked for, Judge. Straight prison. No ease up. No, we don't want no fine. Because you can't pay a fine. Them say you can't pay a fine. Or you go prison. But it's up to the judge. Judge, we no want no fine. Because guess what? No, Judge. Make an example. Because the fine way you'll find them. And in some of these instances, the fine way you'll find them, and I'm not speaking to those 2 cases, but I'm talking about some other cases. The fine way you're going to find them, the statutory fine, is less than with them thief. So if them thief like 20 million, the fine say, oh, you can only find him 2 million. We don't want no fine. We don't want no fine. The money gone. We admit that. The money gone. What we want now? We want hard labor. Send them a GP. GP, we want them. If you have a prison worse than GP, that's what them forgo. That's what them forgo. And if you give them 2 years, make them spend the whole 2 years there. That is where we want. So, Mystic, Jamaics, sis, family members are watching and listen. That is my message. Corruption in Jamaica is rife. Go and read what Mr. Christie said. And the judiciary, I'm pleading, I'm begging, I'm beseeching. When it comes time for sentencing, no ease up, straight prison. Thank you.
Yeah,
Remember Ruel Reid to Rattigan. Remember Ruel Reid.
Straight prison. Whoever them find guilty, straight prison. We don't want no fine. All right, get an example. See what I'm talking about? It's alleged. You say, oh, alleged. Right? It's alleged that Mr. Reid, right, stole, I don't know, millions, whatever. You know what the fine is? Some of them fines are when if you look, if him fail to put it on him statutory declaration, it's 2 million. It's 2 million. What is 2 million to 50 million, 100 million, 200 million, whatever? No, and it's not even the money with them thief, is that we need to put us at least give the world the perception that Jamaica is sick and tired of corruption committed primarily by politicians, and that we are now going to start the ball rolling to do something about it. What we want is get our position on the corruption index above 44. Anything below 50 is corrupt, and Jamaica has been below 50 for, I don't know, decades. We need to get it above 50. If I even 51, we need to get it there. And I'm telling you, if you mark my words, if you put this gentleman who's found guilty now, if you put him in a prison, and when Miss Dalrymple come up for 4-year term and she's found guilty, and you put she in a prison, and then you go after the big owner, the prime minister, and you go after him, and you go after his wife, and you go after the rest of them, Jamaica will be above 50. I guarantee that will be above 50. And then you're going to see you're going to see real investment now coming into Jamaica, because people are going to say this is a safe place. This is a place where you can put your money in and you don't have to worry about no corruption. And by the way, people, let me remind you, there is a Foreign Corrupt Practices Act that is an American law. It says that if an American company, right, our company where do business in America. If that company engages in bribery, corruption acts in another country, that those people are subject to being prosecuted. And then them pass a law a year ago. Don't remember the name of it, but the effect of it is this, that because that was only one, that law only covers a one-way transaction. It just says if the person from the American side is bribing someone, then the American is liable. No, the new law says if a Jamaican asks for a bribe from an American company or accepts a bribe, him no ask for it, no, them give him, he or she is also liable. And even though they might not come to Jamaica, come prosecute you, you better make sure your visa, you don't have an American visa for enough water, because when I grab you, they have something named habeas corpus, we call it habeas grabus, where we just grab you. So, that is what we are talking. That is what we are talking about. So, Mystic, there's a lot of work to be done now. We are going to do it, We are doing it.
Definitely.
We don't stop. Thank you, sir.
All right. Right, in the meantime, that you're at it, I could troubleshoot the question now, because Yard Knight asks a very good question here. Said Rattigan, most of the IC board terms up next year. Mystic Sensation, do you think this opens room for PM to install his puppets? I'm saying that their position can be renewed as well under the process, right? But knowing what is happening in space, right? That the Prime Minister is quite vindictive, and Prime Minister is one of the persons who will be dealing with the appointment. What do you think about it, Ratty?
It's true, and I'm gonna find the section before we leave. But yeah, they can renew their term, right? Their term can be renewed. But you're right. I think it has to do with the Prime Minister plays a role in it. The real God in Jamaica play a role too. The Governor General and play a role too. Although Mr. say I have a spinal surgery, and maybe that's why they put the elevator in the place, because maybe we get diagnosed 2-3 years ago, and that's why them put them spend some millions of dollars to put the elevator in a King's house. But yeah, the term can be renewed, but a lot of people have a lot of role to play in it. But while you
the opposition as well, Rattigan, it has to be, the Prime Minister and the GGK, the opposition has to also consent to anybody. So the opposition has a role here to play in the appointment, reinstating or appointing of these persons.
Yeah.
There's another good question.
Well, Lachlan, with a very good question here. Could this latest spate of corruption reports affect Jamaica's ability to borrow money?
I would say yes. They would make it more the parameters within which they will lend the money will get tighter. So then it's going to affect, how they pay back the loan. But it's going to affect it because that is how they put in austerity measures to make sure they get back their money. So yeah, Lachlan, I would believe that it would affect borrowing. Yes.
Yeah, I want to go parallel with Maria.
I take a different view, and here's why I take a different view. You see, every lender is happy when the borrower pay. They don't care what happens in your life, in your house, or whatever. As long as you make that payment on time, them satisfied with that. And that was Nigel Clark's principal job, is to make sure, say, regardless of how Jamaica was being destroyed, we'll pay the IMF on time. And you see, and what did that do? It opened up lanes of borrowing, because you know much money available for Jamaica borrow right now, simply because the GDP to debt ratio gone from 144 to 70 something right now. A lot, because a lender, them always love a borrower who are pay on time, and Jamaica is paying on time. But what people don't realize is that while you look at it that way and say we are paid on the GDP to debt ratio, we don't produce anything. So at some point, you're going to have to borrow. And if people disbelieve me, just go look at statins. The first 6 months of this year or so, where the trade deficit is like almost, I think it's like 3 point something billion. That's just for first 6 months, right? We imported 4 point something billion and we exported 1 point something billion. There's a trade deficit there. And it all get be worse. When the stats come out January, it all gonna be worse. So yeah, they might go open up the thing. The financing avenues will still be there. We can borrow money right now. But I'm telling you, they might keep them eye on it. And as long as we keep paying, they'll keep lending. As long as we keep paying, they'll keep paying.
But remember, Rattigan, that before they got to this, that before the Portia Simpson-led administration, that they weren't getting any money. And so Bruce Golding found himself in when the administration took over, now they had to literally be going to the IMF to beg them to lend Jamaica money because they needed money to run the country. So when, like you said, you pay the bills, the loans will come. But remember now that they weren't paying the bills. And so they weren't getting any monies at all from the lending agencies. So,
Yeah, I think, sorry, Jamaica, go ahead because, go ahead and speak.
I see what Miss Daisy is saying. It's just like what happened after the Dodds incursion, where Bruce Golding was loosely spending money, and that caused our credibility in terms of paying back was damaged. And then Dr. Peter Phillips, the leadership of Portia Simpson Miller, was able to get borrowing back to Jamaica, and then the economy go through a process of degrowth, holding the funds that we were having, put caps on public sector payment. So we were able to have money in the kitty. So when they came into power, they would have. And what had happened is we now had the epoch out of that. The world know it as an economical miracle, which Dr. Peter Phillips did under the leadership of Portia Simpson Miller. And just to hear the epoch come out just 2 days ago, cautioning the government to not loosely spend money again in terms of hiking the pay of public sector workers, right? And they are now shutting down the epoch because of they were warning them. So what we are seeing today's date, it is a reoccurrence of what happened then. And so I do understand, Ms. Daisy, your concern about we not able to borrow money. But as Mr. Rattigan just explained, remember what Nigel Clark was doing was paying down the debt faster than that it's supposed to. And he's paying off the interest on the debt faster. So that is more attractive to lenders. So he did something for his own selfish benefit. I understand your concern of borrowing, but he has also did something that will be attractive to lenders as well. But I believe the real fixing is going to come from the diaspora injecting into Jamaica to MSMEs to improve them. Because when they were saying that Jamaica is booming, the economy is booming, I'm saying to myself, where is the money coming from to be booming? Because definitely not tourism. So it means that it was money that we already have reserved.
Yeah.
They were using and telling people that we're having a lot of money and the economy is booming. But after we go through that clouded period, and now that we're seeing everything that is opening up, and again we're actually in a recession. So sooner rather than later in the tourism sector, which we all love so much, right? Which I believe they are also not telling the right numbers, what is going on in it. So what is going to happen now in the tourism sector is that they will be laying off people, right? They can lay them off for 4 months. If 4 months period come and 1 day over, they will have to redundant them. So what the contractors are doing in the hotel system is to put the people on rotation, right? And if they want you back, they don't take you back. So what we're seeing with the underemployment now it is a manager in these fast food restaurants, for example, a Burger King, a KFC, Popeyes. They're getting like $120,000 per month. And when you look at that, the staff, the regular staff is getting 15,000. So people don't want to work for these things. So they're saying, so the employment rate is down, and then you have a lot of people just say this money don't make no sense to be working for. So I understand your concern, Miss Daisy, but I think what Mr. Rattigan says, it makes us more attractive to lenders because they don't care about how your country run. They care about you paying back the money to them.
Yeah, I am. Thank you for that point, Jamaica. But I am taking a similar view as it relates to what Freedom puts up there, because I really don't think that Nigel Clark is paying down the debt. I think that Nigel Clark, right, is servicing the debt, and what the reason for me to be saying this, because if you remember that when Nigel Clark took over, right, or when the Jamaica Labour Party administration took over, because we have relays between Ardley Shaw and Nigel Clark. So when they took over from the JLP administration, remember that when they took over from the PNP administration, remember that the debt was $2 trillion. Now Nigel Clark had gone, right, and the debt now extend to $2.3 trillion. So by basic mathematics, how could Nigel Clark be paying down the debt? That is more like servicing the debt, paying using millions of dollars to pay on the interest. Because when you look at it, that is a $600 billion increase, right, since Nigel Clark administration. So Nigel Clark administration had $600 billion more. So that now have our national debt to $2.3 trillion. So there's no way, shape, or form that Nigel Clark could be paying down the debt, right? So that is my take on it, and I applaud Freedom, right, to make that comment. And I.
But here's the thing. If the payment structure, right, you have to be careful how we view it, because the payment structure calls for the payment of interest right now, not for the payment of the principal. Because they want the principal to always stay there. So with them, it calls for the payment. So what Nigel Clark did was exactly what they agreed to do. Was, okay, we're going to have aggressive interest payments until we get to the principal, which is the opposite of what Barbados did. Barbados said, no, we're not going to pay off all this money in such a short space of time. They said, no, we're going to take that extra money that we would pay off the interest rate, and we're going to invest it in our people. We're going to invest it in the industries. We're going to invest it in the development of our country. And you see what Barbados look like right now, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So what Nigel Clark did was exactly what they agreed to do, which is what they shouldn't have agreed to do, but they did it. And so him serving master's purpose, and the master IMF is not the people of Jamaica or the government of Jamaica. It's IMF. And you see where him gone now. Him gone over there now, gone become the lapdog and I run all over the world and I try encourage other countries to do the same thing. You see him going to Kenya, you see him go over there, go to do, right? Let me just get back to something that Maria raised. The tenure for the commissioners. That's an interesting question. I'll tell you why. She's right. You have to have consultation with the prime minister and leader of the opposition. The question I have is this. The real bureaucrat is the governor general. That is who appoint them people, you know. So them come to him and say, here is a name and we want you to appoint this person. And if him really do him job, I'm supposed to do some background. But when him not do no job, so him just sign up or anything, right? So when him do, you're right, Freedom, that debt for life. But again, Freedom, what you have to remember is that that's what the banker want. Because you pay the interest, and as long as you pay the interest, him fine. You'll always be indebted to him. But as long as you keep paying the interest, him good, right? Now, getting back to this thing about the commissioner and the commissioners, the GG, the leader of the opposition, and the prime minister. Here's the thing now. Maria, I think the Integrity Commission Act is silent on. If the Prime Minister said, I want to get rid of them guys and them term finish, right? The only person I think him can't get rid of, and maybe him can get rid of, no, the only person he can't get rid of by statute is the Auditor General, because she's there. I mean, she just get an extension from fair thing. So she get an extension anyway, but it says that by position, you must have the Auditor General sitting there as a commission, right? As a commissioner. Now, if the Prime Minister said the term for all of these people, term has expired, I don't want them, I want Jamaics, right? And the opposition leader said, no, I want Mr. Pantan to remain. Mr. Pantan would like to get an extension because it's 7 years. And he said, I would like Mr. Pantan to get another 7 years because he's doing a good job. The question now is, what will the Governor General do?
True.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
But you know what? With social media, Mr. Rattigan, it is now going to force the Prime Minister to either show that he's serious about addressing corruption, or he's just playing around. You know what I'm saying? Because he's now going to be forced to put people in position or maintain the people who are willing to do the work, you know, and not just put lapdogs and yes men in there who are going to, like what happened in the KSAMC when they were asked to do an investigation into, you know, all these violations of the permits. And they said, oh, yes, they did. And when you look at the report now, you see that there was no substantive investigation that was done in the prior Delwar Williams-led KSAMC. So here we have the problem. So the country cannot run like that. And he's now realizing that. How is he going to? First of all, the IC report has really put a dent into his character on the international stage. Is he willing to jeopardize that any further by saying, you know what, I'm not going to appoint these people because these people have been doing their jobs and holding me accountable? I think he's going to really think twice about going down that rabbit hole of doing that.
Let me tell you why he's not going to think twice. Let me tell you why he's not going. This is a Prime Minister who's desperate. What did he do with Integrity Commission report? He never like it. You see what him do? Him go court for strike down the laws. This choice of the man, him no care. The very some of the same laws where him help shepherd through Parliament. Him said, no, it's good when you apply it to other people like Leslie Campbell and Marisa that Alrim for Philibert. But when it comes to a bro God, it can't apply it to me. When I'm mad people, and me put it in, me I'll take it out.
Animal Farm.
Eh?
Napoleon the pig.
Not what?
Animal Farm. Napoleon the pig.
Right. So, you know, this is what the man does. So me not put nothing past him, you know, because when you get desperate times, call for what? Desperate measures. And this one are desperate.
But the courts, Rattigan, the judiciary held up because the courts threw out 25 of his claims. He has a thing for 28 because it was 28 complete. 25 was thrown out. But as you pointed out, that it was his attorneys, his advisor, who said, don't bother with that part about repealing that section that holds them account. It was his attorneys. So you see, when you put pressure burst pipe. So you see, yeah, go ahead.
You see what the judge said? The judge said, I thank you very much for removing these from my consideration, because if they had come to me for consideration, I would have voted against you. The judge tell him that straight up. But here's the thing, with the Governor General now it's different, because remember now, you know, the court ruled already that, listen, the implement as the states of emergency are being implemented by this government, it's unconstitutional. As it's implemented, right? The way it's being implemented, unconstitutional. What did the Governor General do? Him still give him assent, because remember, you cannot have a state of emergency in Jamaica without the Governor General giving his assent, which means that him sign off on it. The Governor General, the one who declares state of emergency, no, not the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister can only ask the Governor General to give his assent. And if the Governor General says, I'm not giving an assent, then guess what? No state of emergency. And this man keep on a sign off on it. So I have no faith no confidence in him that if the Prime Minister said to him, say, I don't want Mr. Panton, I want Jamaica, for example, that he must say, you know what? No, Mr. Panton, I do a good job, I'm going to keep Mr. Panton. He must say, boy, Mr. Panton, time for you to go home, you know. Time for you to go home. We need new blood now. Me have no confidence in that. None of them.
I want to take side with Ratty with this, because if you notice the pattern of behavior as it relates to the Governor General, always aligned with the Prime Minister. So Ratty is right. Ratty is perfectly right.
Him now go against him now. Put it this way, I would have loved for him to go against him, but I don't think he will. I would have loved for him to well, him spine mash up now. Come just I wish him would have a strong spine. His spine gone. So I know it's worse. I know it's not worse. He was Sarah.
All right.
When you can finally grow up here, Rattigan.
Yeah.
Hello.
Jamaica, use the space now. You told me that you have some things to advertise or promote, right? Use the space and do that before we close.
It is more like awareness, and I'm spreading.
Yes.
Even if you can get more healthy products within your space, I would recommend it. Mr. Rattigan has always promoted health on his program, and I believe that it's something that you need to include as well, Mr. Byron. And I know that you are, of course, serious about health. So right now, these are some products that I use for myself. And this one as well. This is Noonie right here to help to clean your digestive system. This is locally made. My son is 8 years old. He has constipation problem. I've been taking him to pediatrician for years, and it has never helped him. So a capful of this, and trust me, he's telling testimony of it. Yeah, learn how important the Noonie is. Trust me, when I used to see my son forced to go to the bathroom, it's painful, really, really painful. And it was a break from me. And when he came back, I gave him this also. This is coconut oil, and like 2 tips of this, it helps to free the bowels as well. It is good for oral health, positive oral health, to have you better breath. Also, it soothes the skin, tone it. Nothing about bleaching. It is about maintaining the melanin in your skin. And also, it is good for your ear. A lot of time when we hear about natural products, we are not so happy to support our small farmers or small business owners. But I say, even if your own capacity in your own space, get natural stuff and use it. It is the way forward. And this right here, castor oil. Castor oil is good for so much things. You can use the opportunity to research as well. Keep your ear moist. It also ensures that it holds that shine, that body for your ear. And I've been in the tourism sector for over a decade. I've always appreciated my culture and my heritage. And I believe that as a young person and championing the cause of what Marcus Garvey said, find perfection in yourself. Charity begins at home, appreciating who you are, being respectful to people, of course, because somebody out there is facing a harder challenge than you are. So with these products, if it's a case that you'd like to have, most definitely you can reach out to Mystic Sensation, the mystical duo, the sensational duo, and however we can get it to you, most definitely your contribution is appreciated. And we have to think more entrepreneurship as entrepreneurs these days, because guess what? The normal structure is failing. Tourism is failing. Other structures are failing. So this is the way forward in terms of entrepreneurship. And I encourage people to believe in their dreams and their products, their ability, and continue to push it. All right. So this is products.
All right. Thank you for that, Mike. If we might just allow like 5 minutes for persons to call in. If there is no call, then you know we are going to close.
While we're waiting on the call, Byron, I just want to tell Jamaica that look, we have a program every Wednesday night, and tomorrow night we're going to have we have a lady who's involved with aromatherapy. We have Dr. Ben coming on, so if you're available, you come on, and you know the people support your thing. And then you spoke about entrepreneurship. This Saturday on the program, we're having Dr. Kadamawe Knife, you know, a giant up at UA, and when it comes to entrepreneurship, well, just about any subject, you know. But he will be on this Saturday to talk about it. Well, you will be on Saturday, but if you feel free, if you have the time, jump on tomorrow. We have a healthy audience tomorrow. So when I say healthy, not only healthy physically, but healthy with them pocket. So you just show up tomorrow and we do a thing.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
I noticed you and I are wearing red and black and we didn't speak. So, you know, you got the memo. Mr. Canada didn't get the memo.
Okay.
Is the energy all up?
Now look around and say we can't find something red. We don't have nothing red room. It's Byron. I look behind him.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are, you know, at the end of our program. We want to say big thanks, right, for all subscribers who continue to tune in, people in the TV land, right, locally and in the diaspora. I want to say big thanks to the wonderful team of panelists, right, critical thinkers, right, who always tune in. We want to say a big thanks to you. I think tonight we have a wonderful program. Oh, call, we have a call. Oh. Okay, we have a caller here, so let me hear what the caller is saying. Caller, you're on Mystic Sensation. Go ahead.
Good night. First of all, I have to say, the past finance minister, he is a three-card man, and his legacy is bad road. That's the Jamaicans understand. His legacy is bad road. Over the year, I see where the growth of the country is underperformance, and in the way that's how the country operates. It can own in Jamaica, a foreigner own it, and enough of those foreigners selling sugar and flour. In the year, them change out all them money to US dollar and send it back overseas. So the country cannot grow in those conditions. We should try to equip Jamaica to own business. That's the only way we can grow Jamaica. You see, production is the order of the day. We cannot say we're going to grow a country and we not produce. This time passed around 5 months ago. And I can't say, how come cabbage I said with $500 a pound. After this time, the government should flood the country with seed. This is a careless government. I can't say five months ago, because this time come around in a June. I know cabbage I sell for $500 a pound.
Crazy.
No, carelessness that. You understand me? We don't need no scientists to rescue Jamaica. And some simple and mathematics to rescue Jamaica. And understand me? If you equip Jamaica with machinery and make them pay back between 5 to 9 years, you know, if a Jamaican would like to grow up and own a business, and if the government come in, if I put a $5 billion per year, you see, if I have $5 billion per year, I see it should go a lot far away. Go on the road now. This road program, that's a crap. This program, the road program, they implement that thing for crap. The government should implement a road program to make ever the 63 MP get 200 million per year for the next 5 years to fix the road. That would take us to around 12.6 billion and out of a budget of $1 trillion. So that could deal with the road work. Right now, it's only the Prime Minister and I tell you which road for fixing. You only can bring in a road for them free. You can tell them, take up a road and bring it to them. If they not fix it, they not fix it. So the 63 MP would come like a paper MP. So that system for crap. Because at the moment, I know that we not see Jamaica heading anywhere under that system. Because at the the Prime Minister was no say that could if you give special attention. Only the member of parliament know. So the 63 member of parliament should get a 200 million, and if you another them ever spend the money, and the National Work Agency would spend that money. So them who not touch a dollar out of the money. I just them assure the National Work Agency which road to fix, and the National Work Agency spend that money. So we could get value for money, and if our MP don't finish for him 200 million, it go back in the consolidated fund. You see, so Jamaica would benefit more from that. And you want to see bad road. Like in the 70s when we never have money. Main road never to stay so. But a storm come and dig up a road, between a month main road fix, and only the road in the echo area them is too bad. But me never see main road stay bad for all 1 year, 6 months, 1 year. We never see that in Jamaica. After this stuff, I mean, we can see them conditioner. If you should ask all the salesperson and the delivery person, them over island one. Only them can tell a person how the road them stay nowadays. So even that contribute to the road accident. After you have to go through the bad road, when you catch from the good road, now you're going to do more and way for them. So the only road good in Jamaica at the moment is the road that's recently built. Only those are the good one in Jamaica. Take for instance, Spanish Town. A Spanish Town would bring the major amount of traffic in Jamaica. And look at Spanish Town. You have to tell you ask about the pathway. We never see Spanish Town road under those conditions.
We see one chuka dance.
Jamaican people.
One chuka dance, you know.
Jamaican people now talk about. And that's something at that. You know, at that we cannot understand how they not carry out. Because they might try to find it every day. And the city condition of it, them say not give no priority. You see it? So this is a finance minister. He have a right to take himself from Jamaica. Because he would have ended up in enough people things still. Because at the end of the day, him won the money back, Jamaica money back. And only the Prime Minister can tell himself, do that and not do that. You see, so fitting policy to me is like a tree cat. You just have to come on and shake up, send some little sons and so. All right, next thing I go, next thing now. In Manchester, the central and call it that MP Crawford. You notice that in them act someone long after Michael Philip they asked some money to fix a bridge, to build a bridge. And she get fair money long time, not remember say she didn't ask some money, get it, spend it out, and I get more money I know. You see it, and I just hold it from 2020, just hold it them start on the bridge. You see it? And then I think I equip I tell you how far the bridge reach. And the next thing about the Prime Minister. Why if the Prime Minister hand out a donkey and he must go hand out?
All right. Carla, see if we can cut it a little bit shorter for us because, you know, time is up on us, right? So make a few points and then just cut it for us.
Yeah, well, they do make a invade me a big Jamaican people. You know, look out on the election and come up. You know, look out on the we want better to Jamaica and look back on the condition where we're in. And don't make this government take on a faith modern day slave. So now tell the election coming up, just look out of now. Thank you.
All right, well said. And yeah, you made some solid points. You know, just imagine the amount of tax that the taxi drivers, right, and other users of the roads been paying, and then there's no service. No service. It is just really disgraceful. So that is going to close. Yeah, that is going to close. So thank you, Carla, for the input, valuable input. Love that. All right. So that is going to end the night for us. And I want to say once again, big thanks, right? Big thanks to the panel and big thanks to you all. All right. Okay.
Blessings. Have a good night, everybody.
All right, Sister Maria. All right, out. All right.
Let's up.
That's up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, so thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate each and every one. Thank you for making it interactive discussion. And we will see you again on Tuesday, Friday.
Thursday and Titans, right? Friday, as always, and round the clock again, Tuesday. All right. So remember, people, also remember to support Rattigan tomorrow, right? Remember again, support Lonesome in the space, right? Because you know, say Lonesome always come out and beat the fire, beat it until the hammer bend, right? So remember to always stay tuned. All right, blessings. We are out.